Li Mei's Sword of Destiny. Chapter 1374. But after a few steps, the commander of the Kirin army stopped again. What's wrong? Elder Qin looked at him in confusion. You are stronger than me. I think it's better for you to go. The commander of the Kirin army said. I can't go. Elder Qin shook his head. Why? The commander of the Kirin army asked. Because of the state preceptor. If the corpse is fake, then this must be a trap set by him. He wants to find His Majesty's whereabouts from me. So, I have to stay here and stop him. Elder Qin said in a deep voice. I see. The commander of the Kirin army suddenly understood. Without hesitation, he turned around and entered the pagoda. Elder Qin suddenly said, Wait. What's the matter? The commander of the Kirin army turned around and looked at him suspiciously. I'm about to faint because of the state preceptor. I forgot to tell you one more thing. Elder Qin rubbed his forehead. What is it? The commander of the Kirin army asked. When His Majesty first arrived at the Butterfly Valley, he destroyed the image crystal in order to disguise himself as a victim. Elder Qin said. Then how can I find him? The commander of the Kirin army said anxiously. Don't worry. Although His Majesty destroyed the image crystal, he bought a new one in the capital of the spiritual state. His Majesty only established a contract with one person with this image crystal. Elder Qin said. Then it must be you. The commander of the Kirin army laughed. Elder Qin shook his head and said, No, it's not me. It's the last disciple I took in the spiritual state. What? Last disciple? The commander of the Kirin army was surprised. Inside the ancient castle, Qin Feiyang was also shocked. This old man took in a disciple in the spiritual state without anyone knowing? Who was so lucky? One had to know. It was a great honor to be chosen by a fake god and be taken in as a last disciple. Similarly, anyone who could catch the eye of a false god would definitely be a monstrous genius. The commander of the Kirin army regained his composure and said with a smile, Elder Qin, you have never accepted a disciple. Even a genius like Zhuge Mingyang is not worthy of your attention. I'm really curious. What kind of little guy can make you change your mind? Yiglao said. A little girl called Murongjing. Murongjing? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why did this name sound so familiar? Yiglao continued, as for her talent, be it in cultivation or alchemy, it can only be considered average. However, she has a good personality and is sensible. She also keeps a low profile. This old man quite likes her. Accepting her as my disciple can also be considered fate. Elder Qin was about to tell the commander of the Kirin army about his fate with Murongjing, but he suddenly shook his head and said, Now is not the time to talk about this. Go and find her when you arrive at the spiritual state. She is in alchemy room number 1 in the inner palace. It's easy to find her. Does she know your Majesty's identity? The commander of the Kirin army asked. Elder Qin said, She doesn't even know my identity and cultivation strength, let alone your Majesty. I only told her that your Majesty is my good friend. What does she look like? Also, give me the coordinates of the inner palace. The commander of the Kirin army said. Although he was a big shot in imperial capital, he didn't know much about the situation in the spiritual state. Elder Qin glanced at the mountains and rivers around the spiritual pagoda warily, and led the commander of the Kirin army into the spiritual pagoda. Qin Feiyang also drove the ancient castle into the spiritual pagoda. Elder Qin waved his hand, and the door of the spiritual pagoda quickly closed. Then, he looked at the commander of the Kirin army and said solemnly, The reason why His Majesty established a contract bridge with such a small figure was because he was worried that something like today would happen again. So when you go to see Murongjing, don't let anyone see you. Then he added, also, the fact that she's my disciple can't be told to anyone else, especially Qin Feiyang. If that brat finds out, with his personality, he'll definitely follow the clues and find Murongjing. I understand. The commander of the Kirin army nodded. He knew how important Murongjing was. If Elder Qin couldn't leave or something happened, then Murongjing would be the only person who could contact His Majesty. However, there was one thing that puzzled him. He looked at Elder Qin and asked in puzzlement, Why didn't His Majesty establish a contract bridge with you? Because I attract too much attention, and my every move could be monitored. Especially Qin Feiyang. With the ancient castle, it's hard to guard against him. What if one day, when I send a message to His Majesty, he sees me? But Murongjing is different. She's just a small figure, and no one knows her identity. Even if someone sees her, they wouldn't know that she's the only one who can contact His Majesty. Elder Qin smiled. That makes sense. The commander of the Kirin army nodded. Qin Feiyang, who was in the castle, couldn't help but give Elder Qin a thumbs up. That was so thoughtful. If he didn't hear it with his own ears, he wouldn't even think about Murongjing, let alone Murongjing. Elder Qin smiled faintly and waved his hand. The power of the false god appeared, and the image of a young woman appeared in front of the two. It's her. Qin Feiyang was stunned. It was a very ordinary-looking woman, but she had a great figure. She wore a snow-white dress, and her hair was draped over her shoulders. She looked like she was in her 20s. Although she looked ordinary, she had a unique aura that made it impossible for people to ignore her. You know her? Lu Zheng asked. Qin Feiyang said with a wry smile, I entered the inner palace with her. Of course I know her. What kind of person is she? Lu Zheng was curious. If she could enter the inner palace with Qin Feiyang, she wouldn't be as ordinary as Elder Qin had said. Her talent isn't great, but she's quite talented in alchemy. Back in the spiritual state, other than Lu Xingchen and I, she was the only woman who could make supreme-grade elixirs. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Lu Zheng pursed his lips and said, I knew it. Old man Qin, this old man is talking nonsense. He's not talking nonsense either. After all, he's a false god and he's arrogant. How could he take Murongjing's talent seriously? But Elder Qin is right about one thing. This woman is famous for being low-key in the state capital. Many people have asked her to make elixirs, including the treasure pavilion in the city, but she didn't agree. Qin Feiyang said. Lu Zheng said, so, she doesn't care about fame and fortune? She doesn't care at all. Maybe that's why Elder Qin accepted her as his disciple. Qin Feiyang said. She's an interesting woman. I must meet her when I have the chance. Lu Zheng lifted the corner of his mouth and revealed a playful look. Outside the inner city, Elder Qin gave the coordinates of the inner palace to the commander of the Kirin army, and gave a jade pendant to the commander of the Kirin army. He said that this was a token for Murongjing. Only when she saw this token would Murongjing help him contact the emperor. The commander of the Kirin army memorized the coordinates. After putting away the jade pendant, he immediately turned around and activated the teleportation altar. Soon he disappeared. However, Elder Qin didn't know that Qin Feiyang also followed the commander of the Kirin army into the teleportation altar. After the commander of the Kirin army disappeared, Elder Qin waved his hand and opened the gate of the pagoda. He walked to the square outside and glanced around the mountains with a chilling light flashing in his eyes. Then, he waved his hand again, and the stone pagoda of the pagoda closed tightly. At the same time, on the top of a mountain far away, the national master concealed his presence and stood by the cliff, looking at the pagoda and Elder Qin from afar. Yanwei stood behind the national master respectfully with the corpse in his arms, looking at Elder Qin and the pagoda as well. Moments later, Yanwei withdrew his gaze and said with a smile, Sir, the commander of the Kirin army hasn't come out for a long time. As you expected, he must have gone to the spiritual state. What do you know? I want Elder Qin to go to the spiritual state, not the commander of the Kirin army. The national master said gloomily. Is there a difference? Yanwei was puzzled. Of course there is a difference. If Elder Qin goes, the pagoda will be guarded by the commander of the Kirin army. With his strength, he won't be able to stop this old man. Moreover, this old man can seize this opportunity to kill him. But now, Elder Qin wants the commander of the Kirin army to go to the spiritual state while he guards the pagoda. It's basically impossible for this old man to follow him to the spiritual state. The national master said angrily. Yanwei nodded in realization. Suddenly, the national master rolled his eyes and looked at Yanwei. Go and test him. How? Yanwei was suspicious. The national master said, go there now and say that you have something to do in the 9 states. If he stops you and even ignores Emperor Hong, it proves that he really knows the whereabouts of the emperor. This subordinate understands. Yan Wei nodded, put down the corpse, opened a portal, and descended in front of the pagoda. He really came. Elder Qin secretly sneered, looked at Yan Wei and asked expressionlessly, "What are you doing here again?" This old man does not welcome the national master's lackey. Yan Wei frowned and said, "I am under the orders of the national master and Emperor Hong. I have something to do in the 9 states, and I ask Elder Qin to open the pagoda door." Bringing out Emperor Hong again? But this time this old man will not take half a step back. Elder Qin secretly snorted and said indifferently, "Since you are under the orders of Emperor Hong, then take out Emperor Hong's handwritten order, or else there is no need to talk." Hearing this, Yan Wei's eyes flashed, and he glanced in the direction of the national master, and said, "Elder Qin, open the pagoda door. This will eliminate the national master's suspicion of you." Elder Qin was secretly shocked and asked, "What do you mean?" "The national master has long suspected that you know the whereabouts of the emperor. This time he asked me to come here to test you. If you don't open the pagoda door, that will confirm his suspicions. On the contrary, if you open the pagoda door now, he will dispel his suspicions and will never bother you again." Yan Wei thought. Elder Qin's pupil shrank and said, "Aren't you the national master's subordinate? Why are you telling me this?" "Who said I was the national master's subordinate?" Yan Wei snickered. Elder Qin was surprised and thought to himself, "If you are not the national master's man, then whose man are you? You will know in the future." Yan Wei smiled mysteriously. Elder Qin looked at him deeply, waved his hand, and the pagoda door quickly opened. In the distance. The national master was stunned. He actually opened the pagoda door? What was going on? Could it be that his previous guesses were all wrong? You are very smart because the national master is watching from afar. Chapter 1375. The imperial master immediately turned to look at Yan Wei and asked, "What did you say?" Yan Wei said, "I didn't say anything. I just told him that I had received orders from you and Emperor Hong to make a trip to the 9 great provinces." He hesitated for a moment before directly opening the pagoda door. How could this be? Could it be that he doesn't know where the emperor is? The imperial master frowned. This subordinate doesn't know. Yan Wei shook his head. He thought for a while and said, "Maybe it's because this subordinate's strength is weak, so he didn't really care." He added this sentence to leave himself a way out. Because the emperor would return sooner or later. When the state preceptor found out that old Qin actually knew, then with the state preceptor's intelligence, he would definitely be suspicious of his actions today. The imperial master lowered his head and pondered for a while. He then looked at old Qin and said, "Let's not worry about this for now. Let's go see Emperor Hong and push the little prince to the throne." "Yes." Yan Wei nodded. He picked up the corpse on the ground and followed behind the imperial master, flying towards the depths of the mountain. Back to Qin Feiyang and the commander of the Kirin army. After entering the spirit state, the commander of the Kirin army immediately opened a teleportation door. But before entering the door, he pondered for a while. He then took out an illusion form pill and turned into a young man in his 20s before entering the door. Qin Feiyang also controlled the ancient castle and followed him in. In the next moment, the commander of the Kirin army and the ancient castle both landed on top of a mountain range. Mountain ranges overlapping mountains as far as the eye could see. Not far away, on top of a few majestic giant peaks, there was a huge building. That was the most important place in the inner palace. Pill Palace, Martial Palace, Resource Palace. At this moment, many inner palace disciples were moving around in the sky above each palace. The commander of the Kirin army glanced around and entered the forest below. Soon, he found a disciple of the Pill Palace in a forest. Without saying anything, he went forward and knocked that disciple out with a palm strike. He then suppressed his cultivation to the level of a 2-star combat emperor, and changed into the disciple's clothes before flying towards the Pill Palace. Finally, he successfully snuck into the Pill Hall. But that disciple was pitiful. He was stripped naked, leaving only a pair of leggings. A moment passed. Pill Refining Room 1. The commander of the Kirin army stood outside and knocked on the stone door. Soon, the stone door opened, and a woman in white appeared in front of the commander of the Kirin army. That was right. It was Murongjing. Murongjing looked at the commander of the Kirin army and asked coldly, "What's the matter?" The commander of the Kirin army looked around the corridor and said in a low voice, "It was your master who asked me to find you." "Master?" Murongjing's eyes trembled. She stepped aside and said, "Come in." The commander of the Kirin army strode in. Qin Feiyong naturally drove the castle into the alchemy room. After the commander of the Kirin army entered the alchemy room, Murongjing immediately closed the stone door. She turned around and looked at the commander of the Kirin army and asked, "Is master doing well?" The commander of the Kirin army looked at Murongjing and said with a smile, "He is doing very well. You don't have to worry." "Then who are you?" Murongjing looked at him suspiciously. The commander of the Kirin army thought for a while and said, "I am your master's friend. I am here to ask you to help me contact someone." "Contact someone?" Murongjing was stunned. She seemed to have thought of something and became alert. "Don't be nervous. I have your master's keepsake," the commander of the Kirin army said with a smile. He took out the jade pendant from his chest and handed it to Murongjing. The jade pendant was as big as a baby's palm. There was a fire luan engraved on it, emitting a sparkling luster. Murongjing grabbed the jade pendant and looked at it carefully. She then raised her head and looked at the commander of the Kirin army. She was still alert. "What a cautious girl." The commander of the Kirin army smiled helplessly and said, "Don't worry. I am not a bad person. I am here because your master asked me to." Hearing this, Murongjing let down her guard and returned the jade pendant to the commander of the Kirin army. Then, she walked to the side, took out the image crystal, and poured her battle chi into it. After a while, a shadow appeared. Who else could it be but the emperor? But at this moment, the emperor did not have the slightest majesty of an emperor. He was wearing an ordinary long robe and looked like an ordinary person. "Greetings, senior." Murongjing bowed. "Girl, what's the matter?" The emperor looked at Murongjing with an incomparably amiable smile on his face. "Are my eyes playing tricks on me? He is actually smiling so kindly." Lu Zheng was dumbfounded, and the commander of the Kirin army, who was standing on the side, looked up at the emperor's figure. His face was full of excitement, and even his body was trembling. There were even tears of joy in the corners of his eyes. It was great. His Majesty was not dead, but then his mind was full of doubts. Since His Majesty was not dead, then who was the corpse that the Imperial Preceptor brought back? How could the Imperial Preceptor have the Imperial Jade Seal? Murongjing looked at the Emperor and smiled. "I am fine, but someone is looking for you." "Who is it?" the Emperor asked. "Me." The commander of the Kirin army quickly ran to Murongjing's side. "You are?" The Emperor looked at him suspiciously. "Your Majesty," the commander of the Kirin army was about to call out "Your Majesty," but suddenly remembered that Murongjing was still next to him. He said, "Can you give me the coordinates first? I will tell you slowly when I get there." "Who the hell are you?" The Emperor raised his eyebrows. The commander of the Kirin army said anxiously, "It is not convenient to talk here. And now I have a very urgent matter to report to you." "Urgent? Report?" Hearing this, the Emperor's eyes flashed. He looked at Murongjing and said with a smile, "Girl, cover your ears." Murongjing looked at the Emperor and the commander of the Kirin army suspiciously, but she was very sensible and did not ask much. She raised her hands and covered her ears. The Emperor immediately gave the commander of the Kirin army a set of coordinates. The commander of the Kirin army immediately opened a portal. He thanked Murongjing and entered the portal. He didn't even let Murongjing know the coordinates. What is he doing? Why is he so vigilant? Lu Zheng frowned. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed slightly. He glanced at Murongjing and drove the castle into the portal. Yuzhou, a remote town located in the mountains. There were only 500 to 600 families in the town. Just like Iron Bull Town, although there were disputes, quarrels and schemes in the town, compared to the Imperial Palace, this place was much better. People left early in the morning and returned late at night, working hard. Everything seemed so peaceful. In front of a small stream outside the town, there was a newly built courtyard. The courtyard was about 5 to 6 acres of land, surrounded by a row of wooden fences. Inside, except for a 2-story wooden building, it was all vegetable gardens and orchards. Moreover, whether it was the vegetable seedlings in the vegetable garden or the fruit seedlings in the orchard, they were all newly planted. The surroundings of the courtyard were shaded by willow trees and lush greenery, presenting a scene full of vitality. Beautiful wild flowers bloomed in the grass, attracting swarms of bees and butterflies. The stream in front of the courtyard gurgled and was so clear that one could see the bottom. One could clearly see small fish swimming happily in the stream. This place was like a pure land on earth, making people feel at ease. At this moment, a middle-aged man dressed in white was sitting alone under a willow tree by the stream. He was drinking tea and watching the fish in the stream, enjoying this peaceful life. Swoosh! Suddenly, a young strong man in the uniform of an inner palace disciple landed beside the courtyard. It was the commander of the Kirin army. He looked around and soon saw the middle-aged man sitting by the stream. He immediately swallowed the facial restoration pill. With a face full of excitement, he quickly walked to the middle-aged man's side and knelt on the ground. He bowed and said, "Your subject greets your majesty." "It's you." The emperor turned his head and glanced at the commander of the Qilin army. He did not show any emotion and said indifferently, "The people living here are all ordinary people. They don't know my identity. In the future, when you see me, don't be so courteous." "Yes." The commander of the Kirin army respectfully replied and stood up. The emperor turned back, picked up the teacup, took a sip and asked, "Just now you said you have something urgent to report to me. What is it?" The commander of the Kirin army didn't waste any time. He immediately told the emperor about the corpse and the imperial jade seal in detail. After listening, the emperor was unexpectedly calm. There wasn't even the slightest bit of anger between his brows. Seeing that the emperor didn't speak, the commander of the Kirin army asked carefully, "Your Majesty, did you give them the imperial jade seal?" The emperor said lightly, "The real imperial jade seal is with me. The one in their hands is fake." "Fake?" The commander of the Kirin army was stunned. He said, "Why is the fake one so real? It even has the aura of the purple golden dragon blood. Have you forgotten? In this world, not only the late emperor has the purple golden dragon blood," the emperor said. The commander of the Kirin army frowned. A figure in white suddenly appeared in his mind. He said, "Your Majesty, do you mean that the imperial jade seal in the hands of the national master was made by Qin Feiyang?" The emperor said, "Even if it's not him, it has something to do with him. How could this be? He is a descendant of the Qin clan. Why would he help an outsider?" The commander of the Kirin army was furious. The emperor smiled faintly and asked, "Is there anything else?" The commander of the Kirin army knelt on the ground again and begged, "Your Majesty, come back with me. The imperial palace really needs you now." "Go back for what?" "To continue the intrigue. I'm tired. I want to have a good rest," the emperor said. The commander of the Kirin army shouted, "Your Majesty, if you don't go back, the imperial capital will change. I've already expected the worries in your heart. But so what? Look at this place. The mountains are clear and the water is clear. The people are simple and honest. There are no disputes and no worries. How can I bear to leave such a good place?" The emperor smiled faintly. "Your Majesty," the commander of the Kirin army was very anxious. "Okay, you can go back. No matter what happens in the imperial capital, don't come to me. Just let me be willful for once. Enjoy life alone and enjoy this rare peace." Chapter 1376. Capricious. The commander of the Kirin army murmured to himself. As the king of a country, he controlled the fate of billions of people. How could he be capricious? Looking at the back of the king, he asked, "Are you really the king? Why do I feel like you're a different person now?" "You can pretend that I'm not," the king said without turning his head. Why? Why is that? Can you tell me? Where is the emperor who once looked down on the world and looked down on all heroes now?" The commander of the Kirin army roared, his face full of disappointment and confusion. The king fell silent. "Answer me. The commander of the Kirin army roared again and again, almost losing his mind. These past few days, he and Old Man Qin had been so busy in the imperial capital that they were almost overworked. Yet, the emperor was actually leisurely enjoying life here. He didn't know how to describe his feelings at this moment. Go back. After a long silence, the king finally spoke, but he didn't give any explanation. His tone was as calm as ever. Hearing this, the commander of the Kirin army clenched his fingers tightly, making cracking sounds. If you don't go, don't blame me for being rude. The emperor opened his mouth again. His calm tone was laced with a shocking chill. Alas! The commander of the Kirin army sighed, turned around, opened the portal, and left silently with disappointment. The king didn't look at the commander of the Kirin army. He drank tea and looked at the stream quietly. His eyes were calm, as if he had abandoned everything. Since you don't want to care about the capital, then hand over the imperial jade seal. But suddenly, an indifferent voice sounded. Then, Qin Feiyong appeared not far from the king, but he didn't look at the king. Instead, he looked down at the small fish swimming in the stream with indifferent eyes. The king raised his eyebrows and turned to stare at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong said indifferently, I have no other purpose in coming here this time. There are only two things. First, the imperial jade seal. Second, your handwritten decree. What if I don't give it to you? The king asked. The corners of Qin Feiyong's mouth rose as he said, Don't you like this place very much? If you don't, I'll make you stay here forever. The emperor's eyes flashed with anger as he asked, What do you want the imperial jade seal for? It's none of your business. Qin Feiyong said. The emperor said angrily, Don't forget, you are still my son. Don't tell me that. You're not worthy. But before the emperor could finish, Qin Feiyong roared. Immediately after, Thunder Leopard Wang Yongfeng and the others appeared out of nowhere. They stood behind Qin Feiyong and stared at the emperor. Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and calmed the rage in his heart. He said indifferently, I will only give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't hand over the imperial ruler's seal after 3 breaths, I will personally bury you. Don't doubt my determination. The emperor glanced at Wang Yongfeng and the others, then looked at Qin Feiyong. But from the beginning to the end, Qin Feiyong did not look him in the eye. His expression was filled with a murderous aura. The heavens are watching what you do. You will get what you deserve in the future. Believe me. A moment later, the emperor said coldly. With a wave of his hand, a stream of light flew out from the Sea of Qi and landed in front of Qin Feiyong. It was the imperial ruler's seal. Qin Feiyong grabbed it in his hand and looked at it carefully. After confirming that it was the real deal, he put it away. Retribution, then? He looked at the flowing stream and muttered to himself, If there really is retribution, then the one who will get retribution will only be you. Suddenly, he smiled coldly and said, Elder Wang, prepare the ink, paper and inkstone. Yes, Wang Yongfeng respectfully replied and walked in front of the emperor. He took out a table and placed it in front of the emperor. Then he took out the ink, paper and inkstone and placed them on the table one by one. The emperor raised his eyebrows, looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, What do you want me to write? Qin Feiyong said expressionlessly, Abdicate the throne to the little prince, and I will replace the nation preceptor to assist the little prince and control the court. As for the details, I believe I don't need to tell you, you should know. The emperor's face darkened and he glared at Qin Feiyong angrily. Don't look at me like that. From the moment you left the imperial capital, your fate was already decided. So don't blame me. If you want to blame, you can only blame yourself. Qin Feiyong said lightly. Heard it. A trace of hostility suddenly crept up between the emperor's eyebrows. You really have a good plan. With the real imperial jade seal and this handwritten order of mine, you can do whatever you want in the imperial capital. You can even play with the little prince in the palm of your hand. But I tell you, I won't let you get what you want. The emperor sneered. Won't let me get what I want? Qin Feiyong murmured. Suddenly, a smile rose at the corner of his mouth, and he said, Do you still remember what you did to me when you drove me out of the capital? The emperor's pupils shrank. To be honest, a long time ago, I let you have a taste of losing your cultivation and being reduced to a cripple. It's just that I haven't found the opportunity. Qin Feiyang laughed. How dare you? The emperor glared at him. I really don't know what I, Qin Feiyang, don't dare to do in the world today. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and said, Dan Wang Kai, refine a spiritual disaster pill for me right now. Okay. Dan Wang Kai's voice immediately sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Don't go too far. The emperor stood up, looked at Qin Feiyang and shouted. When you forced me to take the spiritual disaster pill, why didn't you feel that you were going too far? Didn't you just say that there would be retribution? And this is retribution. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. The emperor's heart sank. Qin Feiyang was aggressive, and the thunder leopard and the other two beasts, as well as Wang Yongfeng and the others, were also eyeing him covetously. Did he have a choice? Alas! The emperor sighed deeply, and his expression looked extremely lonely, as if he had aged dozens of years in an instant. Qin Feiyang said, Hurry up, my patience is limited. The emperor glanced at Qin Feiyang, then turned to look at the brush, ink, paper and inkstone on the table. Wang Yongfeng had already laid out the paper. Wang Yongfeng had also ground the ink. Wang Yongfeng also handed the brush to the emperor with both hands. Now they were only waiting for the emperor to take the brush and draft an edict. I didn't expect this. I'm the emperor of a country, but I've actually fallen to this point. How sad, how lamentable. The emperor let out a sorrowful cry and grabbed the brush from Wang Yongfeng's hand. Then he began to write rapidly, and lines of small words appeared continuously. I've already comprehended the mysteries of becoming a god and stepped into the false god realm. But after becoming a god, my state of mind changed and I've seen through everything in the world. I don't want to care about the affairs of the world anymore and I want to cultivate. After thinking about it, I've decided to give the throne to the little prince Qin Haotian. But because the little prince is still young and can't manage the affairs of the country, I appoint Qin Feiyang to be the imperial preceptor of the great Qin dynasty, and assist the little prince until the little prince grows up. This is my handwritten edict. The civil and military officials and the feudal lords are not allowed to have any objections. That's all. That was all the content of the edict. Wang Yongfeng picked up the paper, dried the ink on it, looked at it carefully for a while, and nodded to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang went forward and took a look, then took out the imperial jade seal and pressed it on it. A red jade seal was immediately printed on the paper. Then, Qin Feiyang put away the edict and the imperial jade seal, looked at the emperor and said, Now, everything in the imperial capital has nothing to do with you. You can slowly enjoy it here. After saying that, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent Lei Bao, Wang Yongfeng, and the others to the ancient castle, then opened a portal. Now is such a good opportunity, why don't you just kill me? Just as Qin Feiyang was about to enter the portal, the emperor asked gloomily, Can killing you relieve my hatred? No. Next, I'll let you know how stupid your actions were back then. I'll make you suffer so much that you'll want to die and regret it for the rest of your life. Qin Feiyang indifferently left behind a sentence and entered the teleportation gate without looking back. If you don't kill me now, you'll regret it in the future. The emperor looked at Qin Feiyang's back and muttered. Whether it was the commander of the Kirin army or Qin Feiyang, after leaving the emperor's place, they all returned to the imperial capital directly. When the commander of the Kirin army told Old Qin the emperor's words in full detail, Old Qin also had a look of disappointment. The emperor was not anxious, but the eunuch was anxious. Even the emperor himself was not worried that the throne would be stolen, so what was he worried about? But even so, he still couldn't let it go in his heart, because his feelings for the Great Qin Empire were too deep. When the Great Qin Empire was in trouble, he couldn't sit back and do nothing. Qin Feiyang saw all of this and felt gratified in his heart. No matter what the imperial preceptor, Emperor Hong, and the emperor were, at least Old Qin and the commander of the Kirin army were sincerely for the good of the Great Qin. However, Qin Feiyang didn't say anything and drove the ancient castle straight back to the Bright Heaven Palace. Then, he sat on the chair and lowered his head to ponder. After a long time he raised his head, took out the image crystal, and sent a message to Yen Wei. Buzz. After waiting for a long time, Yen Wei's image appeared. Qin Feiyang asked, after seeing the corpse and the imperial jade seal, what was Emperor Hong's expression? Expression? To tell you the truth, I didn't see even a trace of sadness on his face. I'm wondering, are you people from the imperial family also heartless? Yin Wei frowned. Otherwise, why would there be a saying that the imperial family is the most heartless? Qin Feiyong smiled coldly and asked, then when is he going to let the little prince succeed the throne? Yin Wei said, he's discussing with the imperial preceptor, and there's no result yet. When the result is out, tell me immediately. Qin Feiyong instructed. Understood. Yin Wei nodded. Qin Feiyong turned off the image crystal, pondered for a while, and then sent a message to Lu Xingqian and Old Qin. Although he now had the real imperial jade seal and the imperial decree in his hands, there was always an accident. The imperial preceptor would certainly not let him succeed so easily. So, he needed help. Old Qin was a false god, and Lu Xingqian could now also exert the battle strength of a false god. Asking for their help was undoubtedly the best choice. However, when he sent a message to Old Qin and Lu Xingqian, Qin Feiyong did not tell them his plan. He only said that he needed their help. After all, Lu Xingqian was also an ambitious person, and he had to guard against him. And when he heard that he needed help, Old Qin did not ask much and directly nodded to Qin Feiyong. Because now, he really couldn't find a way to stop the imperial preceptor, so he could only pin his hopes on Qin Feiyong. As for Lu Xingqian, without any suspense he gave Qin Feiyong a condition. After all, he was a person who would not easily let go of any opportunity. And the condition was the same one that was invalid last time. Qin Feiyong thought for a while and nodded in agreement. After arranging everything, Qin Feiyong entered the castle and copied the fourth stroke of the Xing formula. Chapter 1377. Time flew by. 5 days later, a piece of news spread in the imperial palace. The emperor had broken through to the false god realm. Everyone was excited. Because the emperor had broken through to the false god realm, Great Qin's overall strength had increased by a large margin. However, Qin Feiyong, Old Qin, and the Kirin army commander knew that this was just a rumor spread by the imperial tutor. They also knew. The appearance of this rumor meant that the imperial tutor was about to take action, and the little prince was about to inherit the throne. As expected, the next day, Qin Feiyong received a message from Yin Wei saying that the ceremony would be held in half a month at the central square of the first city district. The third day, this news started to spread in the imperial city. The imperial tutor purposely spread this news, because, if it was announced on the day of the little prince's succession, it would be too sudden and people would find it hard to accept. Releasing the news now might cause a commotion in advance, but after half a month, everyone would be mentally prepared and have the ability to bear it. Moreover, in order to make this matter even more confusing, no one stepped out to confirm it. Everyone was guessing whether it was true or not. There was no suspense. In the following half a month, a huge storm was set off in the imperial city. Everyone was talking about this matter. This is too much. Does this old fart have any respect for the law? However, Old Qin was furious and raged in the spirit pagoda. When the little prince inherits the throne, the first thing the imperial tutor will do will be to remove me from the commander position. At that time, not only the law enforcement hall and the invincible Black Army, but even the Kirin army will fall into his hands. Old Qin, I really can't see any hope. What do you think we can do now? The commander of the Qilin army looked at Old Qin and sighed as he looked at the clear sky. Don't be anxious. Qin Feiyong asked for my help to stop the imperial tutor. We can't do anything, but he definitely has a way. Old Qin comforted. He was full of confidence in Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong, the commander of the Kirin army, pondered for a while and said, don't you know his character? Even if they do make a move, it will definitely be something detrimental to His Majesty. That's not important. As long as he truly wants the best for Great Qin, I will unconditionally support him. Old Man Qin clenched his fists. No matter what, they had to stop the Grand Preceptor this time. Otherwise, the Grand Qin Empire would fall into chaos soon. Half a month passed quickly. In addition to the previous 5 days, Qin Feiyong had been cultivating for a total of 20 days. Although only 20 days had passed in the outside world, 200 days had passed in the ancient castle. Half a year. Qin Feiyong had only imitated half of the fourth stroke of the feasible character formula. In other words, how long would it take to finish the fourth stroke? However, with the castle around, Qin Feiyang didn't really care. On the contrary, he was very excited now. Because, after this period of seclusion, not only had the cultivation of Wolf King, Fatso and the others greatly improved, the Thunder Leopard, the three beasts, Wang Yangfeng and the others had all stepped into the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm. In other words, in just a few dozen days his foundation had increased by several times. Especially Thunder Leopard. When it was a 9-star War Emperor with its natural advantage, it was enough to contend against a peak 9-star War Emperor realm super expert. And now, its cultivation had also stepped into the peak realm, and it already had the ability to kill others in an instant. In short, Thunder Leopard was now his strongest helper. Of course, the current white-eyed wolf could not be underestimated. Although its cultivation was not as good as Thunder Leopard, there was one thing that Thunder Leopard could never compare to. That was Wolf King's battle soul. Its battle soul was the nemesis of all battle souls. Therefore, after breaking through to the War Emperor realm, Wolf King was undoubtedly even more terrifying, because its innate ability could deprive all living beings of their battle soul below the false god realm. Everyone knew the importance of the battle soul. Once the battle soul was lost, one's strength would drop by half. Therefore, in terms of threat, the Wolf King posed a greater threat to everyone than anyone else. Besides, the current white-eyed wolf's cultivation was not too low. It was a 3-star War Emperor. It was even close to breaking through to the 4-star War Emperor realm and catching up to Qin Feiyang. Early in the morning, the sky had not yet brightened, but the sky and streets of the first district had already become a sea of people. The surroundings of the central square were even more crowded. The teleportation gate in the square had long been closed. More than 100 men in black stood neatly at the edge of the square. Their eyes were cold, and their bodies were exuding a terrifying aura. They were not the invincible Black Army, nor were they the commanders of the Kirin Army. They were the enforcers of the inner court. The leader was the hall master of the inner court, Zhuge Nanhua. Zhuge Nanhua, a super expert at the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm. The 100 over black-clothed men were all 9-star combat emperors. They were naturally arranged by the state preceptor to maintain the order of the day. More than 100 9-star war emperors were dispatched. It was enough to show how much importance the state preceptor placed on this ceremony. Other than Zhuge Nanhua and the 100 over men, there was also the chief eunuch, a few maids and eunuchs. They were setting up the scene and preparing the things for the ceremony. In the square it was in full swing. In the pagoda, Elder Qin and the commander of the Kirin army were also waiting anxiously. However, in the ancient castle it was dead silent. Qin Feiyang was still imitating the fourth stroke. Everyone was also cultivating, and there was not the slightest bit of tension in the atmosphere. Time passed just like that. The sky was bright. However, the sun did not rise. The sky was covered in haze. It was very hot and stuffy. It made one's mood somewhat irritable. In the square, under the lead of the chief eunuch, everything was basically set up properly. In the center there was a statue of a god. The statue held a broken sword and looked up at the sky. It was like a god exuding a monstrous aura. That's right. This was the statue of the deceased emperor. When every emperor ascended the throne, they had to pay respects to their ancestors first. Below the stone statue there was a dragon throne. It was completely made of gold and dazzling. Other than the dragon throne, there were no other seats in the square. This was because only one person was qualified to sit in the ceremony, and that was the current emperor. Even the heir, the little prince, had to stand respectfully before the ceremony was over. On the ground in front of the dragon throne, there was a layer of golden fur mat. This was the place where the civil and military officials, as well as the marquises, stood. The chief eunuch glanced at the statue and the dragon throne. He walked to Zhuge Nanhua's side and said respectfully, "Lord Nangong, it's about time." Zhuge Nanhua nodded and looked up at the sky. He frowned and said, "The weather today is not very good." "Yes, it feels like it's going to rain." The chief eunuch frowned. The coronation ceremony was related to the fate of the great Qin dynasty. Therefore, there was a saying in the imperial palace, "If it rains during the coronation ceremony, it is a bad omen." Thinking of this, the chief eunuch looked away and looked at Zhuge Nangong. He said in a low voice, "Should we change the date and hold the ceremony when the weather is better?" Change the date? Zhuge Nangong frowned and said, the news has already been released. If we change the date now, I don't think it's appropriate. The chief eunuch said worriedly, but the weather looks like it's going to rain. Zhuge Nanhua looked up at the sky again and saw dark clouds surging in the sky. The weather was fine yesterday. Why did it become like this today? Zhuge Nanhua was furious. He looked away and said to the chief eunuch, you stay here and watch. I'll go ask the Grand Master. Okay. The chief eunuch nodded. Zhuge Nanhua immediately opened a portal and landed in front of the Grand Master's courtyard. He said, I have something to ask the Grand Master. Come in. The Grand Master's voice came from the attic. Zhuge Nanhua entered the courtyard and walked to the front of the attic. He pushed open the door and saw the Grand Master sitting alone by the tea table, staring at the void in front of him. There was a hint of anticipation, joy, and nervousness on his face. Zhuge Nanhua entered the hall and closed the door. He cupped his hands and said, Nanhua greets the Grand Master. The Grand Master was the son of the first Zhuge Wuhou. Therefore, in private, Zhuge Nanhua, Zhuge Wuhou, and the others all addressed him respectfully as the Grand Master or Grand Master Yun. However, the Grand Master did not seem to have heard it. He was still staring at the void in front of him. Zhuge Nanhua looked at the void in doubt. There was nothing there? Suddenly, he looked at the Grand Master and said with a smile, the Grand Master must be very excited right now. The Grand Master finally looked away and said, after waiting for so many years, this day has finally come. Of course I'm excited, but at the same time I'm a little hesitant. Hesitant? Zhuge Nanhua was stunned and asked in confusion, what is the Grand Master worried about? The Grand Master shook his head and said, I don't know either. I can't explain the feeling. In short, I just can't calm down. This is because the Grand Master has waited for too long. When this moment really arrives, it feels too unreal. Zhuge Nanhua said with a smile, yes, that's the feeling. It's very unreal, like a dream. The Grand Master nodded repeatedly. Grand Master, you don't have to worry. With Emperor Hong around, the little prince inheriting the throne is a sure thing. There won't be any changes, and it won't change because of anyone. Zhuge Nanhua comforted. Hearing this, the Grand Master calmed down a lot and asked, how's the arrangement? It's done, but there's a problem now. Zhuge Nanhua frowned. What's the problem? The Grand Master asked. Zhuge Nanhua said, Grand Master, you should go out and take a look yourself. The Grand Master looked at him suspiciously, got up and opened the door. He stood in front of a flower bed and scanned the surroundings. But soon, he noticed the situation in the sky. Wasn't the weather pretty good yesterday? The Grand Master immediately frowned and looked at Zhuge Nanhua, who followed him out, and said. Zhuge Nanhua said with a bitter smile, I can only say that the weather is unpredictable. Just now the head eunuch suggested changing the date. Grand Master, what do you think? Things will change if we delay. We can't change it. The Grand Master didn't even think and directly shook his head. But Zhuge Nanhua said, I know what you're going to say, but I really don't believe that it's an ominous sign. Chapter 1378. Old Ancestor, sometimes you can't just ignore luck. Zhuge Nanhua frowned. The Grand Tutor nodded. You're right. But tell me, who will inherit the throne this time? The little prince. Do you even need to ask? Zhuge Nanhua was stunned and looked at the Grand Tutor in confusion. That's right. It's the little prince who will inherit the throne. Even if it's an ominous sign, it's the little prince's business. What does it have to do with us? Besides, this ominous sign is only spread within the imperial palace. Outsiders don't know about it. Even if it really rains, it won't cause too much of a commotion. The Grand Tutor sneered. That's right. Zhuge Nanhua nodded in realization. The Grand Tutor smiled. Maybe we're the ones who brought this ominous sign. We. Zhuge Nanhua was stunned. That's right. Because we want to take the throne from the little prince, the ominous sign has appeared. This is a warning from the heavens to the little prince. However, the little prince is just a brat now. He doesn't know anything and doesn't understand this at all. The Grand Tutor said. Zhuge Nanhua pondered for a while and looked up at the sky. He smiled. Old ancestor, what you said does make sense. After saying that, Zhuge Nanhua said worriedly, however, if it really rains, Emperor Hong might give the order to cancel the ceremony. Therefore, we have to complete the ceremony as soon as possible. Go to the square first and maintain order. This old man will go look for Celestial Empress now and explain everything clearly to her, lest she makes any mistakes for this old man. The Grand Tutor said. Yes. Zhuge Nanhua replied respectfully and opened the portal. He turned around and walked in. Ominous sign. You actually created such a troublesome matter for me at such an important time. Heavens, are you playing with me? However, even if you're God, I won't compromise. The Grand Tutor looked at the hazy sky and smiled coldly. Then he rose into the sky and disappeared at lightning speed. About half an hour passed. Buzz. Qin Feiyang received a message from Yin Wei. All the civil and military officials had arrived at the central square. All the vassals had also arrived. The grand ceremony was about to begin. Qin Feiyang finally withdrew his arm, closed the book and left the castle. On the square, the various feudal lords and civil and military officials gathered at the center of the square, whispering to each other. The surroundings of the square were also extremely noisy. Hundreds of civil and military officials have arrived. It seems that the news of His Majesty's abdication is true. But have you thought about it? The little prince is still so young. He doesn't have the ability to take charge at all. How can His Majesty rest assured and hand over the throne to him? Even if he doesn't want to care about worldly affairs, does he have to wait until the little prince grows up? Yes, I wonder what His Majesty is thinking. People could not figure it out. Don't forget that there's still someone in the imperial capital? Who? Qin Feiyang. As soon as they heard the name Qin Feiyang, everyone immediately fell silent, and a trace of fear crept into their eyes. Back then, Qin Feiyang must have killed the princes for the throne. Because once the princes are dead, he will be the only heir. No one can compete with him. It makes sense. Although he was expelled from the imperial palace, he is still the emperor's flesh and blood. If the emperor has no children, he will definitely be considered when he abdicates. However, he is still one step behind. The emperor and empress gave birth to another Ryuko. That being said, the little prince is too weak. With Qin Feiyang's means, it will be a piece of cake for him to deal with him. I think there will definitely be a scene of brothers killing each other today. Just as the people were discussing, three figures suddenly appeared in the sky above the square. Prince Hao Tian, Empress, and the state preceptor have arrived. The chief eunuch shouted loudly. The square immediately fell into a dead silence. Everyone looked up at the three people. At the moment, the three people were dressed very formally. The state preceptor wore a golden crown and a pale golden robe. He held his head high and his hands behind his back. His face was serious and he looked extraordinary. The empress was also wearing a phoenix robe, a phoenix crown, and a phoenix cloud on her shoulders, showing a luxurious aura. The little prince was wearing a golden robe with a four-clawed golden dragon embroidered on it. It was very vivid. However, after all, the little prince was still young. Looking at the civil and military officials, the various vassals, and the people gathered around, there was a touch of panic on his little face that could not be concealed. Greetings, Your Highness. Greetings, Empress. Greetings, State Preceptor. Zhuge Nanhua and Zhuge Wuhou looked at each other and both knelt down to kowtow. Seeing this, the other Wuhou, civil and military officials, as well as the surrounding people, immediately knelt down. One must know. At the moment, there were at least 8 million people gathered in the first district. With so many people speaking at the same time, what kind of scene was it? The voices intertwined with one another and soared into the sky, shaking the heavens. The state preceptor and the empress enjoyed the feeling of being worshipped by the people and being high and mighty. But the little prince was at a loss. When the empress noticed the little prince's situation, she whispered, "Hao Yan, let them rise." Oh. The little prince nodded and stretched out his little hand. "Everyone, please rise." "Thank you, Your Highness." Everyone bowed and stood up. The empress raised her eyebrows, squatted in front of the little prince and helped him tidy up his clothes, and whispered, "Hao Yan, what you said was wrong." "What's wrong?" The little prince's face was full of suspicion. No matter if you are a prince or an emperor, You can't say the word please to the civil and military officials, or the people of the empire. Because this will make you lose your dignity, understand? Celestial Empress advised earnestly. The little prince nodded his head as if he did not understand. The state preceptor at the side secretly sneered. The little prince was so young, how could he understand these things? Cough. The state preceptor coughed and said, Empress, Empress, everyone is waiting, bring the little prince down first. Okay. The Empress nodded, grabbed the little prince's hand, and landed in front of the dragon throne. The state preceptor also landed at the side, glanced at the officials and the people around, and did not want to waste any more time, so he nodded to the chief eunuch. The chief eunuch understood, looked forward, and said loudly, the ceremony begins. Everyone immediately quieted down. The square was as silent as ashes. The civil and military officials, as well as the marquises, were also divided into two camps, standing neatly on both sides of the dragon throne. Bring the holy water. The chief eunuch shouted again. Immediately, two palace maids walked into the square. One of the palace maids was holding a golden basin half filled with water, and as she walked, she created layers of waves. The other palace maid was holding a golden tray, and on it was a neatly folded towel. The void. Lu Xingchen stood in the space divine item, looking at the little prince, the empress, and the state preceptor in the image, his eyes flickering. Mu Qing looked at the golden basin in the palace maid's hand and asked in confusion, My lord, what is this holy water? Lu Xingchen was stunned and teased. If I say that it can bring the dead back to life, will you believe it? Of course. Otherwise, why would it be called holy water? Mu Qing said. Lu Xingchen was speechless for a moment, and shook his head. The holy water is just dew collected in the morning. Mu Qing looked stunned. This is the so-called holy water? For a moment, he was quite speechless. Why isn't Qin Feiyang here yet? Lu Xingchen looked at the image again and murmured. Mu Qing said disdainfully, Don't you know this bastard? He will definitely wait until the end and appear as the finale. Lu Xingchen was stunned, then shook his head with a smile and murmured, I don't know what he wants to do this time. Can't be anything good. Mu Qing snorted coldly. He had a lot of opinions about Qin Feiyang now. Outside, the two palace maids walked up to the little prince and bowed. Greetings, your highness. Please, the little prince was about to say please again, but when he saw the empress's eyes, he shrank his neck slightly and immediately changed his words, rise. Thank you, your highness. The two of them thanked him respectfully, but they didn't rise. Instead, they knelt on the ground and handed the golden basin and towel to the little prince. The little prince looked at the golden basin and towel suspiciously, raised his little head, looked at the empress and asked, Mother, what should I do? Wash your hands. Then use the towel to wipe the water off your hands. This is a necessary step to worship the ancestors. The empress whispered. I see. The little prince smiled and immediately raised his two little hands and put them into the golden basin. Then, a shocking scene appeared. The little prince suddenly became playful and played with the water in front of everyone. He was having a lot of fun. After all, he was still a child and still had the innocence of a child. But the state preceptor's face gradually darkened when he saw this scene. Seeing the change in the state preceptor's face, the empress quickly squatted down, grabbed the towel on the tray, and whispered, Toner, now is not the time to play. Raise your hands. The little prince pursed his lips, raised his little hands, and put them in front of the empress. The empress immediately used the towel to wipe the water off the little prince's hands, then put the towel back on the tray, and waved her hand, You may leave. Yes. The two palace maids responded respectfully and turned to leave the square quickly. The chief eunuch glanced at the state preceptor's face and immediately shouted, Burn the incense and worship the ancestors. Before his voice died away, another palace maid walked into the square with an exquisite tray in her hand, on which there were 3 finger-thick incense sticks and a candle. When the palace maid walked up to the little prince with the tray in her hands, the little prince's face was filled with suspicion again. The state preceptor was extremely impatient, and said to the emperor through telepathy, This kid doesn't know anything. It's a waste of time. Bring him to burn the incense and worship the ancestors. Okay. The empress responded secretly, then grabbed the 3 incense sticks and lit them on the candle. Immediately green smoke curled up. Then, the empress pulled the little prince to the statue of the late emperor, and knelt down and kowtowed 9 times. At this moment, the civil and military officials, the zhuge liang, and the surrounding people also kowtowed to the statue. Chapter 1379. But the difference was, in other people's hearts, they all held 120% respect for the statue of the late emperor. Because without the late emperor, there would be no current Great Qin Empire. Without the Great Qin Empire, there would be no them. So, people were not only grateful to the late emperor but also grateful. But the imperial preceptor and the people of the Zhuge family were full of ridicule. So what if the late emperor was strong? Wasn't the Great Qin Empire now in the hands of their Zhuge family? Even in the near future, the Great Qin would change its surname to Zhuge. In fact, they were also very grateful to the late emperor. Because, if the late emperor hadn't overthrown the Tianyang Empire and established the Great Qin Empire, their Zhuge family wouldn't be where they were today. Of course, their gratitude was tinged with sarcasm. A moment later, the ceremony of burning incense and worshipping the ancestors was finally completed. The empress pulled the little prince and walked to the side of the imperial preceptor. The officials and the people also got up one after another. The imperial preceptor looked at the head eunuch and said, "Read the imperial edict." The head eunuch nodded and took out the imperial edict from his chinkuan bag. This imperial edict was naturally prepared by the imperial preceptor and Emperor Hong in advance, and it was even stamped with the imperial jade seal. Seeing the head eunuch take out the imperial edict, the people present knelt on the ground again. This time, the empress and the little prince also knelt down. His Majesty has decreed. The head eunuch opened the imperial edict and solemnly read it out. The content was similar to the handwritten edict in Qin Feiyang's hands. The only difference was that the handwritten edict wanted Qin Feiyang to replace the imperial preceptor and assist the little prince. And in the imperial edict, the imperial preceptor still assisted the little prince in handling the state affairs. After reading it out, the head eunuch looked at the little prince and the imperial preceptor and said, "Your Highness, Imperial Preceptor, please accept the edict. This subject thanks Your Majesty for your trust. This subject swears here that I will not let Your Majesty down and assist His Highness well. For the Great Qin, for the people, I will do my best until I die." The imperial preceptor prostrated in front of the head eunuch and shouted righteously, his face full of gratitude, "This child thanks Father." At the empress's signal, the little prince also knelt on the ground and said respectfully. Then, he received the imperial edict from the head eunuch. The chief eunuch took out the imperial jade seal and looked at the little prince. He smiled and said, "Your Highness, please accept the imperial jade seal." At this moment, the state preceptor was extremely excited. As long as the little prince received the imperial jade seal, he would be the true emperor of the Great Qin Empire. No one could change that. The empress was equally excited. A mother's status depended on her son. Now that the little prince had become the emperor, her status in the imperial palace would naturally rise as well. Wait! But just as the little prince stood up and was about to take the imperial jade seal, a cold voice sounded. Everyone was slightly startled and quickly looked towards the source of the voice. They saw that the person who spoke was the Marquis of Shao. Both the imperial tutor and Empress Dowager's eyes flashed with hostility. The head eunuch asked, "Does Marquis Shao have any objections? This is Your Majesty's imperial edict. Naturally, I do not dare to object. However, I do not understand why Your Majesty did not attend such an important ceremony in person." Marquis Shao said, "So it's about that." The head eunuch came to a realization and said with a smile, "Your Majesty knew that someone would ask this, so he specially instructed me to tell everyone that he is currently in seclusion and does not want to be distracted." Marquis Shao asked, "Is seclusion more important than the coronation ceremony?" The head eunuch's gaze turned slightly cold as he said, "How can we, mere mortals, guess the thoughts of Your Majesty? Therefore, Marquis Shao, please do not cause any more trouble in public and affect the progress of the ceremony." Marquis Shao's face darkened as he knelt on the ground and said, "I did not cause any trouble. I was just voicing out the doubts in my heart. If I have offended the dragon's might, I am willing to accept the punishment. The head eunuch smiled and said, Marquis Xiao is concerned about your majesty. Your majesty will definitely be deeply gratified when he learns of this. Please get up quickly. Marquis Xiao frowned as he stood up and retreated to the side. He really wanted to see the emperor, but based on the current situation it was impossible. The head eunuch also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He scanned the civil and military officials and the various marquis and asked, Does anyone else have any objections? No. Marquis Zhuge was the first to shake his head. The others looked at each other and shook their heads as well. The head eunuch swept his gaze across the crowd and looked at the little prince. He smiled and said, Your Highness, please accept the imperial jade seal. All right. The little prince nodded and raised his hands. The head eunuch immediately placed the imperial jade seal in the little prince's hands. This subject greets your majesty. Following closely, the head eunuch was the first to kneel in front of the little prince and respectfully called out, Greetings, your majesty. The officials knelt down once again. The imperial advisor also bowed, but his hands were tightly clenched together. He was incomparably excited. Your majesty, please ascend to the dragon throne. The head eunuch. The little prince raised his head and looked at the dragon throne before skipping towards it. The empress hurriedly grabbed the little prince and said in a low voice, Tian'er, now that you are the emperor, you can't be like this anymore. You have to be mature and solemn. How troublesome. The little prince muttered in dissatisfaction as he allowed the empress to pull him to the front of the dragon throne. He turned around and sat on it unhappy. However, the two small hands did not stop. They touched here and there, unable to calm down. At the end of the day, he was still a child. It was difficult for him to be mature and steady like an adult. The imperial advisor frowned and looked at the empress. He sent a voice transmission, This is improper. Hurry and carry him. Don't let him move. All right. The empress nodded and carried the little prince. She sat on the dragon throne and held the little prince's hands with both hands. She whispered to everyone, Watch. Listen to your mother and don't move. The little prince pouted and his little face was filled with displeasure. The imperial advisor glanced at the little prince and walked to the side of the dragon throne. He looked at the officials and a cold glint flashed in his old eyes. His Majesty is still young, and there are many things that he doesn't know. Therefore, I hope that everyone can assist His Majesty with all their strength from now on to manage the court well and seek the well-being of the people. Yes, Imperial Advisor. The civil and military officials and marquises all cheered. Of course. If I find out that someone is playing tricks behind my back, I won't let them off easily. The Imperial Advisor said again. His Majesty's eyes trembled and he said no. The Imperial Advisor is so impressive. But then, a faint laugh suddenly sounded. The Imperial Advisor raised his eyebrows and scanned the void in the square. He really came. The group of officials and the surrounding crowd could not help but feel a chill in their hearts when they heard this voice. They hurriedly looked at the void, because this voice was too familiar to everyone. It was Qin Feiyang. Under everyone's gaze, a young man in white appeared out of thin air under the statue of the deceased emperor. Who else could it be but Qin Feiyang? Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang's back and their pupils constricted. The Imperial Advisor's brows were also furrowed. But there was one person who was overjoyed when he saw Qin Feiyang appear. That was the little prince. Brother! The little prince cried out in surprise and broke free from the Empress's arms and ran toward Qin Feiyang. Seeing this, the Imperial Advisor hurriedly grabbed the little prince and sent him back to the Empress. He said with a voice transmission, If you don't keep an eye on him and let him do whatever he wants, don't blame me for being rude. The Empress's body trembled and she hurriedly hugged the little prince in her arms and whispered, Tanner, I beg you. Please don't move around now, okay? I'm not, I just want to find my brother. The little prince looked innocent. You may treat him as your brother, but he may not treat you as his brother. Don't be silly, okay? Maybe he's here to steal the martial monarch throne from you. The Empress said anxiously. Really? That's great. Anyway, I don't like being the emperor. It's definitely not fun, so I'll let my brother be the emperor. The little prince was overjoyed. Hearing this, the Empress, the Imperial Advisor, the civil and military officials below, and the marquises all changed their expressions. The little prince did not care at all. He looked at the empress and said coquettishly, "Mother, can you let my brother be the emperor?" The imperial advisor suddenly turned his head and stared at the little prince like a poisonous snake, his eyes flashing with a terrifying light. The little prince was small and did not care at all. However, the empress's face turned pale instantly. She hurriedly covered the little prince's mouth and begged, "My little ancestor, can you stop talking?" The little prince looked wronged. Qin Feiyong did not seem to notice all of this. From the moment he appeared, he had been looking at the statue of his ancestor in silence. After an unknown period of time, Qin Feiyong suddenly knelt on the ground and bowed respectfully to the statue of his ancestor. "Ancestor, don't worry. The empire of the great Qin will never be taken away because I'm here." After muttering in his heart, Qin Feiyong stood up and faced the imperial advisor and the others. The imperial advisor frowned. "What are you doing here?" Qin Feiyong glanced at the little prince and smiled at the imperial advisor. "As his brother, how can I not congratulate him on his ascension?" Congratulate? Everyone looked at each other. It was probably not that simple. However, no one dared to say it out loud. The imperial advisor said in a deep voice, "Since you're here to congratulate, why did you come so late? Don't you know? The main character usually appears last." Qin Feiyong chuckled. The empress said angrily, "Qin Feiyong, don't be presumptuous. The main character today is my son." "That's right. Today is the day of His Majesty Haotian's ascension, but you say that you are the main character. May I ask what your intentions are?" Zhuge Wuhou also shouted. Qin Feiyong glanced at the empress and Zhuge Wuhou, and the corner of his mouth pursed into a playful smile. He said, "The two of you are indeed close friends. Even your words are so tacit." The word close friend was especially emphasized. When the two of them heard this, a trace of panic immediately appeared on their faces. Could it be that this little bastard already knew about their matter? The imperial advisor raised his eyebrows imperceptibly and looked at Qin Feiyong. "Since you're here to congratulate, you should have prepared a gift, right?" "Of course. And there's more than one gift." Qin Feiyong nodded and said with a smile. The imperial advisor said, "Then please present it." "Don't worry. Before presenting the gift, I still have something to deal with." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and slowly walked towards the little prince. "Qin Feiyong, His Highness Haotian is now the emperor of the Great Qin. You'd better not act recklessly." Chapter 1380. The Grand Tutor and the ministers present also became nervous. If it was someone else they wouldn't care. But Qin Feiyong, who in the Great Qin Empire didn't know that he was a lawless lord. There was nothing he didn't dare to do. Qin Feiyong stopped in front of the chief eunuch. He looked at the chief eunuch and said faintly, "Step aside." The chief eunuch shook his head. Qin Feiyong grinned and asked, "Are you sure you don't want to move aside?" The chief eunuch immediately felt a sense of fear that couldn't be resolved. He quickly retreated to the side. This was completely instinctive. The Grand Tutor stared at Qin Feiyong. His palm was glowing with the power of a false god. Without a doubt, if Qin Feiyong dared to hurt the little prince, he would immediately attack. Qin Feiyong walked in front of the little prince and cupped his hands with a smile. "Your Majesty, please come down." The little prince pouted and said, "Brother, why are you also calling me Your Majesty? I don't want to be the emperor. Why don't you do it?" "Tiens," the empress scolded. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. "If I wanted to be the emperor, I would have sat on the dragon throne long ago. Why would I wait until now?" The little prince looked at the empress proudly. "See, mother, not only I don't want to be the emperor, but even brother doesn't want to be." The empress whispered, "He's lying to you. Don't listen to his nonsense." "Why would brother lie to me?" The little prince shook his head. The empress stared at Qin Feiyong warily. "Tanner, you're still young. Don't be fooled by his appearance. He's a demon who kills without blinking." Qin Feiyong joked. "I do kill without blinking, but I've never done anything shameless." The empress' eyes trembled slightly. This wasn't the first time Qin Feiyong hinted. Qin Feiyong looked at the little prince and smiled. "Come down." "Okay." The little prince nodded and jumped down from Celestial Empress's body. Imperial Preceptor hurriedly stepped forward and shielded the little prince behind him. While the State Preceptor was protecting the little prince, Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with killing intent. He took a step forward and raised his arm at lightning speed to grab Celestial Empress' neck. Celestial Empress' beautiful face instantly turned pale. The State Preceptor, the Chief Eunuch, and the other ministers were all stunned. They had always thought that Qin Feiyang's target was the little prince, but they never thought that it was actually the Imperial Empress. Qin Feiyang, what are you doing? Stop! Zhuge Wuhou regained his senses and immediately shouted, his eyes filled with killing intent. Your heart aches just because of this? Qin Feiyang picked up the Empress, turned to look at Zhuge Wuhou and teased. Zhuge Wuhou panicked and pretended to be calm. I don't know what you are talking about? But let me tell you, Celestial Empress is the birth mother of His Majesty Hao Tian. If you dare to hurt her, the entire Great Qin Empire will not tolerate you. Qin Feiyang said. Then tell me, when has the Great Qin Empire ever tolerated me? Zhuge Wuhou didn't know how to answer. You're not going to answer? Then let me tell you. From the moment I was chased out of the imperial capital, the Great Qin Empire no longer tolerated me, Qin Feiyang. Everyone wanted to kill me, everyone wanted to beat me up. But so what? Aren't I still living well? Qin Feiyang stood proudly, his long hair and clothes fluttering in the wind. His gaze swept across the entire audience, as if a king had descended to the world, his entire body filled with a monstrous domineering aura. None of the civil and military officials below dared to look him in the eye, and all of them lowered their heads. Finally, Qin Feiyang's gaze once again landed on Zhuge Wuhou's body and said, I'm not saying this to show off how powerful I am, but to tell you before you threaten me, it's best to use your brain and think carefully. His words were filled with mockery. Zhuge Wuhou's hands that were hidden in his sleeves couldn't help but clench tightly. This time, the little prince ran out from behind the imperial tutor and looked at Qin Feiyang. Big brother, why did you hurt mother again? Did mother do something wrong? Your Majesty, be careful. The imperial tutor's expression changed, and he hurriedly protected the little prince behind him. Qin Feiyang glanced at the little prince, then looked at the imperial tutor and said, Is there a need to be so nervous? If I really wanted to harm him, do you think he would still have the chance to stand here? I'm afraid he would already be a corpse. The imperial tutor frowned and said in a deep voice, What exactly do you want? What do I want? Qin Feiyang muttered, a bright smile gradually appearing on his face, and said, Some people living in this world are just wasting food. As he said this, Qin Feiyang suddenly looked at the Empress and said with a smile, For example, you? That smile was like the smile of a death god. The Empress suddenly felt as if she had fallen into a bottomless abyss, and her entire body was ice cold. Crack! As soon as he finished speaking, under the shocked gazes of countless people, Qin Feiyang's 5 fingers tightened, and he actually crushed the Empress's throat. Accompanied by a mournful scream, the Empress died on the spot. Seeing this scene, the people present were all stupefied. He actually killed the Empress in front of everyone? Heavens! Was this guy going to heaven? How dare he? The Empress was the mother of a country. And now she had another identity, the birth mother of the White Sky Emperor. In terms of status, she was even higher than the imperial tutor. Yet, Qin Feiyang had actually killed her in front of so many people, in front of His Majesty the White Sky Emperor? This person was too arrogant. This was a public provocation. The scene was as silent as ashes, and everyone's hearts were in turmoil. Qin Feiyang, you brute! After the imperial tutor came back to his senses, he immediately shouted, his old eyes filled with anger. As for the little prince, he was scared silly. Qin Feiyang glanced at the imperial tutor indifferently, waved his hand, and threw the Empress away as if she was trash. No one knew if he did it on purpose or not, but with a bang the Empress fell right in front of Zhuge Wuhou. Zhuge Wuhou immediately quivered and came back to his senses. He lowered his head to look at the pale-faced Empress, who died with her eyes wide open, and an unresolvable sorrow appeared on his face. However, under that grief there was also endless killing intent. He instinctively reached out, wanting to touch the Empress's face. You dare! But at this moment, an angry shout exploded in Zhuge Wuhou's mind like a clap of thunder. Zhuge Wuho's body and mind trembled as he raised his head to look at the imperial tutor. The imperial tutor sent a sound transmission. Although she is the woman you love the most, right now, you better put away your emotions. Yes, Zhuge Wuho secretly replied. Looking at the empress's corpse, the sorrow on his face quickly disappeared and was replaced by anger. You're quite good at enduring. Qin Feiyong looked at Zhuge Wuho in surprise, then looked at the little prince. Discovered. In the little prince's eyes, there was already a trace of hatred towards him. Suddenly, someone roared, "This child killed the empress in front of everyone," causing both man and god to be indignant. If we don't kill him, where is the justice? Qin Feiyong raised his head to look. It turned out that Qianwu Marquis was fanning the flames. Right. He's too arrogant. If we don't do anything about it, I don't know what kind of heartless things he will do. Your Majesty Hao Tian, please issue the decree. Arrest Qin Feiyong, throw him into the divine prison, and choose a day to behead him. The civil and military officials all roared in anger. But the little prince turned a deaf ear to them, and only stared at Qin Feiyong silently. The head eunuch looked at Qin Feiyong in fear, ran to the imperial tutor's side, and said in a low voice, "Lord Imperial Tutor, His Majesty Hao Tian has been frightened. I suggest that we send him back to the imperial palace immediately." The imperial tutor turned to look at the little prince and nodded. Send him back, comfort him well, and bring the empress's corpse back as well. Yes. The head eunuch nodded. But at this moment, Qin Feiyong looked at the head eunuch and the imperial tutor and laughed. What's the rush? I still have a congratulatory gift that I haven't given yet. The imperial tutor looked at Qin Feiyong sinisterly and said, Don't worry about him, bring His Majesty back. The head eunuch hurriedly opened a teleportation door. The imperial tutor is so domineering. Qin Feiyong clapped and laughed. But, before I give the congratulatory gift, no one is allowed to leave. Old Qin, come out. As Qin Feiyong's voice fell, Old Qin and the commander of the Kirin army rushed out of the crowd and landed beside Qin Feiyong like lightning. The imperial tutor's pupils suddenly shrank. Seeing that Old Qin had arrived, the head eunuch did not dare to move. Old Qin glanced at the imperial tutor and the others and said, Bastard, what are you trying to do? He and the commander of the Kirin army had arrived long ago, so they had seen everything that had happened before. They never thought that Qin Feiyong would actually kill the empress in front of everyone. You will understand in the future, Qin Feiyong secretly said, and then looked at the ministers and marquis below, and shouted, All of you shut up. Everyone immediately fell silent, their eyes filled with fear. So this kid had Old Qin and the commander of the Kirin army behind him. No wonder he dared to be so arrogant. Qin Feiyong nodded in satisfaction, then looked at the little prince and smiled. Your Majesty, please sit on the dragon throne. The imperial tutor angrily said, What are you trying to do? Following that, he sent another sound transmission. Don't forget that you promised to help me, to help the little prince ascend to the throne. Qin Feiyong secretly laughed and said, Isn't the little prince already ascended to the throne? The imperial tutor secretly said, Then why are you causing all this trouble now? Qin Feiyong said, Don't be anxious, you will know later. The imperial tutor's face was gloomy. He personally carried the little prince and walked to the dragon throne. Qin Feiyong said indifferently, Don't mess around, the dragon throne is not something you can touch. The imperial tutor was prepared to do what the empress did before, sit on the dragon throne and carry the little prince in his arms. But when he heard Qin Feiyong's words, his expression froze. Don't worry, I know what I am doing. The imperial tutor coldly snorted and placed the little prince on the dragon throne, then stood beside the little prince, looking at Qin Feiyong and the other two warily. And at this moment, the little prince was no longer as lively as before, sitting obediently on the dragon throne. But if one looked carefully, they would find that the hatred on his young face was getting stronger. Qin Feiyong naturally noticed, but he did not take it to heart. Before he decided to kill the empress, he had already expected that the little prince would hate him. But what did it matter? He just had to have a clear conscience. Chapter 1381. Why did he say that? Because the situation was different. Before, the little prince didn't ascend to the throne. He could pretend to be deaf and dumb. Because at that time, although the empress was the master of the harem, she didn't have the power of regent. So no matter what she did, she couldn't do anything. And now, the little prince became the emperor of Great Qin. As the mother of the little prince, the power in the empress' hands was naturally not what it used to be. Of course, if the empress and Zhuge Wuhou didn't have an affair, it didn't matter. But now the situation was that this woman was in cahoots with Zhuge Wuhou and the state preceptor to control the little prince. So, if this woman continued to live, then the little prince would be killed by her sooner or later. In other words, he killed the empress to protect the little prince. However, the little prince couldn't understand this now. Even if Qin Feiyang told him the truth, he couldn't understand at such a young age. However, Qin Feiyang didn't plan to tell the little prince. If he wanted to hate, then hate. Besides, hatred could make a person grow quickly. Just like when he was young, he was as innocent as the little prince and thought that the world was full of good people. But the result? How many good people did he meet? So, only when he tasted pain and saw the cruelty of the world, his mind would mature. And this was what the little prince needed the most now. At this moment, the central square was so silent that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Everyone's eyes were on Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's own ability and foundation couldn't be underestimated. Now with Elder Qin and the commander of the Kirin army, even in the face of the state preceptor, he already had the strength to be on par with him. In fact, everyone was very puzzled. When did Elder Qin and the commander of the Kirin army rely on Qin Feiyang? Weren't they afraid of the emperor's punishment? After all, Qin Feiyang was the emperor's sworn enemy. This emperor didn't mean the little prince but Qin Feiyang's father. Qin Feiyang looked around the entire place. In the end, he whispered a few words into the ears of the Qilin army's commander. After the commander of the Qilin army heard this, he immediately looked at him in surprise. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Do as I say." "All right." The commander of the Kirin army nodded. He immediately opened a portal and ran in without looking back. Seeing this, the imperial tutor's frown deepened. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Imperial preceptor, please don't be impatient. When the commander invites that old man here, I will present a congratulatory gift. This advisor would like to see what kind of tricks you have up your sleeve." The imperial preceptor snorted. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and turned his head to look at the statue of his ancestor. For a moment he fell silent. Old man Qin glanced at the imperial advisor and frowned. He sent a voice transmission to the imperial advisor. "Brat, can you tell me what your plan is? It's a secret for now. However, you must be prepared to fight at any time." Qin Feiyang thought. Fight? Old man Qin was bewildered. Fight with who? Imperial advisor. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent as he sent a voice transmission. If this opportunity succeeds, the imperial advisor will definitely die. But the premise is, can you keep him here? Old man Qin's heart trembled. Who would have thought that Qin Feiyang was actually playing a big game of chess? Time passed breath by breath. Swish. Suddenly, 3 figures descended above the square. One of them was the commander of the Kirin army. The other 2 were Emperor Hong and Qin Jun. Emperor Hong. Seeing that the commander of the Kirin army had invited Emperor Hong, the imperial advisor, Zhuge Wuhou, Zhuge Nanhua, and the others all had a change of expression. At the same time, old man Qin's eyes were also filled with shock. However, the others looked at Emperor Hong and Qin Jun with suspicion on their faces. Who were these 2 people? Why had they never seen them before? "Greetings, Emperor Hong." The next moment, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Old man Qin and the imperial tutor both bent their waists at the same time and bowed to the old man. What? Even the imperial advisor and old man Qin are so respectful. Everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. He is Emperor Hong? How is this possible? Wasn't there a rumor that Emperor Hong had already passed away? Is this a dream? However, the various martial marquis present, as well as some old officials, were overwhelmed with shock at this moment, because they still remembered this name. Look at Emperor Hong again. He stood high in the sky, looking down at Qin Feiyang with a trace of displeasure on his old face. Qin Jun's eyes flashed with a cold light. Qin Feiyong met Emperor Hong's gaze and said with cupped hands, "This commoner Qin Feiyong greets Emperor Hong." As for Qin Jun, he directly ignored him. This kind of small character couldn't enter his eyes at all. Emperor Hong asked, "Why did you specifically ask the commander of the Kirin army to invite this old man here? Why are all of you so impatient?" Qin Feiyong shook his head and sighed. Looking at the crowd around him, he said loudly, "Do you know who this old man is?" Everyone looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyong chuckled and said, "He is the son of the previous emperor, the second emperor of the Great Qin, and also my, Qin Feiyong's great-grandfather." His voice was like a bell, echoing in the sky above the first city district, not dissipating for a long time. What? The first city district was immediately in an uproar. Everyone's face was filled with shock. Seeing that Qin Feiyong had announced his identity, the displeasure on Emperor Hong's face became even stronger. He looked down at Qin Feiyong and said, "What exactly do you want to do? You'll know soon." Qin Feiyong chuckled, swept his gaze across the audience, and said loudly, "Now I will present my first congratulatory gift." Finished. With a wave of his hand, a jade box appeared, floating in the air, emitting a hazy luster. In an instant, everyone's gaze fell on the jade box. The imperial tutor glanced at the jade box and nodded to the eunuch. The eunuch swallowed his saliva, stepped forward, grabbed the jade box and carefully opened the lid. When he saw what was inside the jade box, his body stiffened, and his face was filled with disbelief. What made the steward so surprised? Seeing this, everyone became more and more curious. "What is it?" The imperial tutor raised his eyebrows and asked. Yes, the eunuch stammered and couldn't say anything for a long time. "What the hell is it? Say it," the imperial tutor shouted. The eunuch said, "The imperial jade seal." "What?" The imperial tutor's expression changed. He hurriedly walked to the front of the jade box and looked down. He saw an imperial jade seal lying quietly. How could this be? The imperial tutor muttered to himself. Emperor Hong, Qin Jun, the commander of the Kirin army, and old Qin also landed in front of the jade box. Looking at the imperial jade seal inside, their faces were filled with bewilderment. Isn't the imperial jade seal in the hands of the White Sky Emperor? Why does Qin Feiyong still have an imperial jade seal on him? People began to discuss. This sudden turn of events caught everyone off guard. Swish! After old Qin and the commander of the Kirin army came back to their senses, they immediately turned to look at Qin Feiyong, their eyes aggressive. "Where did this imperial jade seal come from? Did you go to His Majesty?" Old Qin secretly said. His tone was rather gloomy. "Yes." Qin Feiyong didn't deny it. "Why? His Majesty has already retired. Why won't he let him go?" "How did you find His Majesty?" Old Qin said angrily. "Since he has already retired, why is he still occupying the imperial jade seal? Occupying the latrine without shitting? What's more, if you want to deal with the imperial tutor, you must have the real imperial jade seal. As for how to find him, it's very simple. I followed the commander of the Kirin army." Qin Feiyong secretly said. Old Qin was furious. Seeing this, the commander of the Kirin army quickly said, "Old Qin, it's more important to deal with the current situation. Don't be angry." Old Qin took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He grabbed the imperial jade seal and looked at it carefully. Suddenly, Qin Jun raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyong. With a stern voice he shouted, "How dare you? You actually dared to forge the imperial jade seal." Hearing this, Qin Feiyong's expression didn't change. He was calm and collected. On the other hand, the imperial tutor panicked, because he knew very well. He was the one who forged the imperial jade seal. As for the imperial ruler's seal that Qin Feiyong took out, it was very possible that it was the real imperial ruler's seal. But he couldn't figure out why the imperial jade seal was in Qin Feiyong's hands. Seeing that Qin Feiyong was silent, Qin Jun thought that Qin Feiyong had tacitly agreed. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as he looked at Emperor Hong and said, "Lord, Qin Feiyong forged the imperial jade seal and offended the emperor's prestige. This is a heinous crime. Lord, you must punish him severely." Emperor Hong's eyes flashed. Qin Feiyong looked at Qin Jun and said playfully, "You want to kill me that much?" Qin Jun sneered. It's not that I want to kill you. It's that you're courting death. I'm courting death? Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and asked, how do you know? Qin Jun snorted coldly. The Imperial Jade Seal in the Imperial Tutor's hands has been personally verified by Emperor Hong. Heard it? Everyone looked at Qin Feiyong. If it was as Qin Jun said, the Imperial Jade Seal in the Imperial Tutor's hands was real, then the Imperial Jade Seal that Qin Feiyong took out was definitely a fake. Even daring to forge the Imperial Jade Seal, did this guy really not want to live anymore? He even invited Emperor Hong over. Wasn't this courting death? The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth lifted slightly. He looked at Qin Jun and said with a smile, what if this Imperial Jade Seal of mine is real? If it's real, this old man will kneel down and apologize to you in public. Qin Jun opened his mouth without hesitation. Because back then, Emperor Hong had indeed personally verified it. He also witnessed it with his own eyes. Therefore, he firmly believed that the Imperial Jade Seal that Qin Feiyong took out was fake. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, you're an old senior. You can't go back on your words. Nonsense. What kind of identity does this old man have? Naturally, I'll keep my word. But what if this Imperial Jade Seal of yours is fake? Qin Jun sneered. Isn't he just a page boy? What kind of identity is he? What a joke. Qin Feiyong secretly smiled disdainfully and said indifferently, if it's fake, I, Qin, will commit suicide in public to apologize. Haha, Qin Jun laughed loudly and sent a sound transmission to Qin Feiyong. Little bastard, you're dead for sure today. Let's wait and see. Qin Feiyong smiled coldly. Qin Jun looked at him sinisterly, then snatched the Imperial Jade Seal from old Qin's hands and respectfully handed it to Emperor Hong, saying, my lord, please verify it. Chapter 1382. At this moment, the Imperial Preceptor was unprecedentedly nervous. Because he was guilty. Zhuge Wuhou and the others were equally nervous. At this moment, the only people who could remain calm at the scene were probably old Qin, the commander of the Kirin army. Qin Jun, old Qin, and the commander of the Kirin army both knew that this Imperial Jade Seal was real. Qin Jun, on the other hand, believed that it was fake. Because they weren't worried at all. 2 Imperial Jade Seals? What's going on? My lord, tell me which one is real. Which one is fake? Inside the space divine object, Mu Qing's face was full of suspicion. Lu Xingchen looked at Qin Feiyong and the Imperial Preceptor, and suddenly laughed. Don't you understand Qin Feiyong's character? He never does things that he is not sure of. Mu Qing raised his eyebrows and said, my lord means that Qin Feiyong's Imperial Jade Seal is real? Yes. Lu Xingchen nodded. Mu Qing said in surprise, so, he has seen the Emperor? Is there a need to say? If he hasn't seen the Emperor, would he really have the Imperial Jade Seal? This bastard is really a cunning fox. I thought that he had been cultivating in seclusion in the castle these days, but in fact, he had been secretly plotting. Lu Xingchen rubbed his head, feeling a headache. Hearing this, Mu Qing was somewhat unconvinced. Lu Xingchen frowned again and said, but I'm puzzled, where is this Emperor hiding? And why does Qin Feiyong know so much about the Imperial Preceptor's every move? If he didn't know about the Imperial Preceptor's every move, Qin Feiyong couldn't have done it so well. Could it be that there was Qin Feiyong's spy beside the Imperial Preceptor? On the square, Emperor Hong gradually frowned. What's going on? It hasn't been verified for so long. Could it be that Qin Feiyong's Imperial Jade Seal is real? People muttered under their breath. Qin Jun could not help but feel uneasy as he asked cautiously, Sir, is there a problem? Emperor Hong said, give me the Imperial Jade Seal in the little prince's hands. Qin Jun's eyelids twitched. He hurriedly turned around and walked in front of the little prince. Regardless of the little prince's current identity, he directly snatched the Jade Seal from the little prince's hands and handed it over to Emperor Hong. Emperor Hong grabbed the Imperial Jade Seal in one hand and compared it over and over again. In the end, he was surprised to find that there was no difference between the 2 seals. What's going on? Of the 2 Imperial Jade Seals, one of them must be fake. But which one was it? Qin Jun asked, Sir, can't you verify it? Emperor Hong furrowed his brows. Looking at everyone, he said, these 2 are both real. Impossible. Even if it's an exact replica, there must be traces left behind. For example, the era. The real heirloom imperial jade seal has a history of 10,000 years. There are many traces of weathering on it. As for the forged imperial jade seal, there is absolutely none, Qin Jun said. If you don't believe me, take a look for yourself. Emperor Hong raised his eyebrows and threw the 2 imperial jade seals to Qin Jun. Qin Jun immediately caught it in his hand and compared it carefully. The result? He was shocked to discover that the traces of weathering on the 2 imperial jade seals were almost exactly the same. Of course, this was carefully handled by the imperial preceptor. But Qin Jun did not know. His face was filled with disbelief. How could this be? Seeing this, the imperial preceptor Zhuge Wuhou and the others could not help but secretly heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, they also saw a turning point. Because, as long as the Emperor Hong could not verify the authenticity, then they would have a way to make everyone believe that their imperial jade seal was the real deal. The imperial preceptor's eyes flashed as he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "This imperial preceptor really has no choice but to admire your methods. The forged imperial jade seal, even Lord Emperor Hong is unable to distinguish it." Qin Feiyang looked at the imperial preceptor, the playfulness in his eyes growing stronger. Emperor Hong also looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "How did you forge it?" Qin Feiyang said, "Why do you think that my imperial jade seal is forged?" Emperor Hong said indifferently, "All these years you have stirred up trouble in the imperial capital, doing evil things to the extreme, and the imperial preceptor's loyalty to the great Qin is obvious to everyone. Between you and the imperial preceptor, of course I will choose to believe in the imperial preceptor." "I'm stirring up trouble? The imperial preceptor is loyal?" Qin Feiyang chuckled, an indescribable sadness in his heart. This was his great-grandfather Qin Feiyang? What a joke! The imperial preceptor secretly laughed and looked at the Emperor Hong respectfully. "Lord Emperor Hong, there is no need to waste words with this kind of person. Please give the order to take him down as a warning." "That's right. If we let him continue to cause trouble, who knows what will happen to the great Qin Empire?" Qin Jun followed. Haha. Qin Feiyang raised his head and laughed loudly. His laughter was filled with ridicule that couldn't be dispersed. How did it become like this? Victory is clearly in our grasp, but why is the imperial preceptor's forged imperial jade seal so lifelike? Old Qin muttered to himself, looking at Qin Feiyang and the imperial preceptor, his heart filled with anxiety. This rate, not only would they be unable to topple the imperial preceptor, even Qin Feiyang would probably fall here. This was far too different from the outcome he imagined. Emperor Hong looked at Qin Feiyang and said coolly, "Right now you are too impudent. There is indeed a need to give you a bit of suffering. Don't force me to give the order. Take the initiative to follow me to the divine prison." Impudent. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback, then continued to laugh loudly. Still laughing. Simply preposterous. Do you still have Lord Emperor Hong in your eyes? Qin Jun was furious, taking a step forward, a slap towards Qin Feiyang's face. Humph! Old Qin snorted coldly, standing in front of Qin Feiyang. Terrifying divine might was like a torrent, pouncing towards Qin Jun. Now that things had come to this, he already had no way out. He had to protect Qin Feiyang's safety. Seeing old Qin make a move, not only did Qin Jun not have the slightest fear, he became even more arrogant, staring at old Qin gloomily, and shouted, "What do you want to do? Want to rebel? As long as this old man is here, no one can even think about harming Qin Feiyang." Old Qin enunciated each word, his tone firm. But this sentence was not said for Qin Jun to hear. Qin Jun did not have this qualification. He said it specifically for the imperial preceptor and Emperor Hong. A cold light flickered in the imperial preceptor's eyes, landing in front of Qin Jun with a step, confronting old Qin. Emperor Hong's expression was still calm, sizing up old Qin, not knowing what he was thinking. Looks like it's time to make a move. Inside the spatial divine object. Looking at the stalemate outside, Lu Xingchen muttered, a wisp of killing intent appearing in his eyes. The atmosphere in the plaza became more and more solemn. Old Qin and the imperial preceptor were both ready to make a move. But suddenly, Qin Feiyang stopped laughing, looked at Emperor Hong and Qin Feiyong and said, "The great Qin Empire has idiots like you." I, Qin Feiyong, also feel despair. What? He actually called Emperor Hong an idiot. My God, he's really crazy. Everyone was dumbfounded. The imperial preceptor, Old Qin, and the commander of the Kirin army were also dumbfounded on the spot. What was wrong with this guy? Deliberately provoking Emperor Hong? This kind of attitude could no longer be described as arrogant, it was too crazy. Awesome. Domineering. Inside the spatial divine object, Mu Qing and Lu Xingchen also had a look of shock. When they came back to their senses, they opened their mouths one after another. Although they did not have a good impression of Qin Feiyong's current performance was indeed admirable. Impudent, impudent, impudent. On the plaza, Qin Jun quivered and suddenly roared, his anger overflowing to the heavens. Who do you think you are? You dare to yell in front of me? Believe it or not, I will cripple you right now. Qin Feiyong also roared, his tone carrying a bone-piercing chill. Qin Jun's face stiffened. Looking at Qin Feiyong's cold eyes, his heart could not help but feel a sense of fear. So powerful. Everyone's mind trembled once again. It seemed that Qin Feiyong was going to completely tear off all pretense of cordiality with Emperor Hong. If you have the ability, why don't you try crippling him? Suddenly, Emperor Hong opened his mouth. His eyes, which had always been calm, finally changed, carrying a trace of sharpness that made people tremble. However, Qin Feiyong was not afraid in the slightest. He met Emperor Hong's gaze and sneered, "My ancestor's wisdom has been completely defeated in your hands today. Are you worthy of my ancestor?" Emperor Hong's face darkened slightly. Qin Feiyong turned a blind eye to it, looked at Qin Jun and said, "I have changed my mind now, the bet between you and me double." Afraid of you? Qin Jun looked at Qin Feiyong with contempt. If the imperial jade seal I took out was fake, I would immediately kill myself in front of the ancestor's statue. But if it's true, I want your old life. Do you dare? Qin Feiyong shouted, revealing his sharpness. So confident. Everyone was bewildered. Qin Jun also hesitated, his face dark and uncertain. "Feiyong, don't be so impulsive," Old Man Qin said in a low voice. "Don't worry about it. I'm going to risk my life with him today." Qin Feiyong waved his hand, looked at Qin Jun and sneered, "What? You don't dare? You only have this much courage? Trying to scare me? All right, this old man will fulfill your wish. I'll bet with you." Qin Jun flew into a rage out of humiliation and roared. "Very good." Qin Feiyong nodded with a smile, looked at Emperor Hong again and said, "And you, I originally wanted to leave you some face, but you really don't know what's good for you. Now don't blame me for being impolite. Lord Emperor Hong, do you dare to bet with me?" Emperor Hong raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyong said, "If the imperial jade seal I took out is real, I don't want your old life, as long as you kneel in front of the ancestor's statue and repent for 3 days. This is a bit of a gamble." People muttered. The imperial preceptor's eyes flashed, and he said in a low voice, "Lord Emperor Hong, he is purely desperate. You don't have to pay attention to it. Please give the order to kill him directly." He couldn't help but start to panic again, because Qin Feiyong was too confident, too calm. That was why he suggested to kill Qin Feiyong immediately. Because as long as Qin Feiyong died, all of the truth would be covered up. The corners of Qin Feiyong's mouth curled up, and he said coolly, "Want to kill me, Qin Feiyong? I'm afraid that no one here has this ability." Towards Qin Feiyong's arrogance, people were already numb. Right now, everyone only wanted to know whether or not Emperor Hong dared to bet. And what was the final result? Emperor Hong pondered for a moment, and said expressionlessly, "This old man is not a child. It's impossible to agree to your boring bet. If the imperial jade seal you took out is real, then hurry up and prove it to this old man." "That's not right, right? The statue is our great Qin's late emperor, and also your biological father. Repenting in front of him, you actually dare to say that it's boring? Lord Emperor Hong, this son of yours is really incompetent. I can't help but feel sorry for the ancestor." Chapter 1383. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. This was obviously forcing Emperor Hong to agree. Moreover, Now, Emperor Hong had no choice but to agree, because Qin Feiyong had spoken too harshly. If Emperor Hong still did not agree, it would be equivalent to admitting that he was not qualified to be his son. The most important thing was that in this way, he would fall to the point where his reputation would be swept away. As expected, Emperor Hong looked at Qin Feiyong for a moment, then nodded in agreement to this bet. Heavens, I beg of you, please help me. Seeing Emperor Hong nod, the imperial advisor's heart sank as he silently prayed in his heart. But he forgot that before the ceremony began, he had provoked the heavens. Crack! Boom! It was unknown if the heavens harbored hatred in their hearts and wanted to take revenge on the imperial advisor. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky. Dark clouds rolled over from the distant horizon. The earth gradually sank into darkness. This gave the imperial advisor a fright. It's going to rain. Everyone looked up at the sky, but they didn't think too much about it. He just felt that it wasn't appropriate for the heavens to rain now. But Emperor Hong, Elder Qin, the commander of the Kirin army, and the various martial marquis couldn't help but think of the legendary ominous omen. Everyone couldn't help but ponder in their hearts. Could it be that the ascension of the young prince today would affect the fate of the country? Although dark clouds covered the sky, the rain did not fall. Emperor Hong retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyong, saying, "Don't waste time, hurry up and prove it." Qin Feiyong also retracted his gaze, turned to look at Elder Qin and asked, "You are familiar with the Imperial Jade Seal, right?" Elder Qin didn't know why Qin Feiyong asked this question, but he still nodded. Qin Feiyong said indifferently, "Then let me ask you, is there any part of the Imperial Jade Seal that is incomplete?" Elder Qin said without thinking, "The Imperial Jade Seal is the treasure of the country. How could it be incomplete?" Qin Feiyong said, "All right, now go and carefully observe the bottom of the 2 Imperial Jade Seals. I guarantee that it will bring you a surprise." Bottom. Everyone present was slightly stunned. The 2 Imperial Jade Seals were now in Qin Feiyong's hands. When he heard Qin Feiyong's words, he immediately flipped them over and examined them carefully. However, old Qin stepped forward and snatched the 2 Imperial Jade Seals from Qin Feiyong's hands. Then he retreated to Qin Feiyong's side and lowered his head to examine them. Qin Feiyong reminded him, "If you can't see it with your naked eyes, use your divine sense." "All right." Old man Qin nodded. Bottom? The Imperial Preceptor looked at the Imperial Jade Seal in surprise. What was going on? His heart felt an inexplicable sense of panic. Then look at old Qin. His gaze swept over them one by one, not missing a single spot. Suddenly, his body trembled as his gaze locked onto a certain spot at the bottom of the Imperial Tutor's Imperial Jade Seal. His old eyes were filled with bewilderment. From the looks of it, he seems to have discovered something? People murmured. Old man Qin's every move now affected the hearts of everyone present. Boom! A moment later, Elder Qin was even more surprised. Huanjin released his divine sense and scanned the bottom of the 2 Imperial Jade Seals. Haha, about 100 breaths later, Old man Qin suddenly laughed out loud. "What did you find? So happy." Everyone was puzzled. Suddenly, Old man Qin looked at the Imperial Preceptor and said sarcastically, "Old man, although you did it flawlessly when you forged this Imperial Jade Seal, you still missed out on something." The Imperial Preceptor's face darkened. "What did I miss?" The commander of the Kirin army stepped forward and asked. Old man Qin raised the Imperial Jade Seal in his hand and said loudly, "At the bottom of this Imperial Jade Seal, there is a broken gap." "Impossible!" The Imperial Preceptor immediately shouted. When he was forging, he was very careful. There was no missing part at all. Old man Qin sneered. "No matter how much this old man says, it's useless. Let's let Lord Emperor Hong personally verify it." After saying that, he handed the Imperial Jade Seal to the front of Emperor Hong. Emperor Hong glanced at the Imperial Preceptor, and also released his divine sense into the bottom of the Imperial Jade Seal. Soon, a trace of anger crawled up his face. Obviously, he had already noticed the broken gap. Old man Qin laughed again. "Lord Emperor Hong, take a look at the Imperial Jade Seal that Qin Feiyong took out." Emperor Hong controlled his divine sense and enveloped the Imperial Jade Seal. As a result, he did not find any traces of damage on it. "Lord, how is it?" Qin Jun asked nervously. Sigh. Emperor Hong pondered for a long time, then suddenly let out a long sigh and said, the imperial jade seal that Qin Feiyong took out is the real one. What? Qin Jun's body and mind trembled, his face was pale, and his entire body collapsed powerlessly. It was actually true. Didn't that mean that he had lost this bet? Zhuge Wuhou, Zhuge Nanhua, and the others' faces were also filled with despair. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I want to verify it myself. The imperial preceptor suddenly roared as if he had gone mad. He snatched the imperial jade seal from Emperor Hong's hands and did not use his eyes to look at it. He directly used his divine sense to check it. Divine sense was all-pervasive. What the naked eye could not see, divine sense could see. It didn't take long for him to discover the gap. How could this be? I was clearly very careful, very careful. How could there be a gap? The imperial preceptor's eyes suddenly became sluggish as he muttered to himself. His old face was filled with disbelief. Although he was muttering to himself, there were many people around who heard it clearly. It's really a forgery. We were wrong to blame Qin Feiyong. A dignified imperial preceptor, knowingly breaking the law, simply deserves to die 10,000 times. The most despicable thing is that he even slandered Qin Feiyong, saying that the real imperial jade seal is fake. Deceiving the top and deceiving the bottom, trying to cover the sky with one hand. His heart is worthy of death. A group of ministers immediately roared, filled with righteous indignation. In an instant, the imperial preceptor became the target of public criticism. It's really a good move, Lu Xingchen muttered. After such a ruckus, not only did Qin Feiyong successfully wash his name, his position in the hearts of the world had also reached an unprecedented level. Now, as long as Qin Feiyong gave an order, people would probably follow his lead. On the other hand, the imperial preceptor, because he thought that he was clever, he had now become a street rat that everyone wanted to beat and kill. Mu Qing frowned and said, it seems that Qin Feiyong's purpose is to eliminate the imperial preceptor today and destroy the Zhuge family at the same time. That's why he asked me for help. Lu Xingchen said. Mu Qing asked, do you want to help? Of course. After all, the imperial preceptor is also a big threat to us. Lu Xingchen smiled coldly, murderous intent surging in his eyes. When Lu Xingchen and Qin Feiyong cooperated, they had already agreed that the first step of the plan was to eliminate the imperial preceptor. But in the past, Qin Feiyong was not strong enough, and there was no false god by his side, so it was difficult for Lu Xingchen to kill the imperial preceptor alone. But now it was different. Qin Feiyong exposed the imperial preceptor's forgery of the imperial jade seal in public, which had already caused the imperial preceptor to arouse public anger. Old Qin and Emperor Hong would not let him go easily. So, whether it was for Qin Feiyong or Lu Xingchen, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This old man thinks that he is very smart, but he doesn't know that he has been led by Qin Feiyong by the nose. Mu Qing looked at the imperial preceptor in the screen and smiled contemptuously, then looked at Qin Feiyong, frowned slightly, looked at Lu Xingchen and said, although we can take down the imperial preceptor this time, Qin Feiyong's threat to us is undoubtedly getting bigger and bigger. My lord, you have to be careful. Yes, the speed of this kid's growth has exceeded my expectations. After entering the miracle and achieving our goal, I will get rid of him as soon as possible, so as not to become my roadblock in the future. Lu Xingchen said. My lord is wise. Mu Qing bowed and said, the killing intent in his eyes undisguised. Outside, civil and military officials, the various marquis, and the surrounding people all glared at the imperial preceptor. And the people of the Zhuge family were terrified to the extreme at this moment. The plan was exposed. For their Zhuge family, it was no different from a disaster. How could it become like this? The imperial preceptor lowered his head and kept muttering, finding it hard to accept this fact. Who did it? Someone must be playing tricks. All of a sudden, the imperial preceptor roared, his killing intent soaring to the heavens. It's me, Qin Feiyong said. You? The imperial preceptor immediately looked at Qin Feiyong, his eyes flashing with a cold light, and said, the imperial jade seal has always been in my hands, how could you have the chance to tamper with it? Qin Feiyong said, remember back then, you came to me for the purple gold dragon blood? Purple gold dragon blood. The imperial preceptor suddenly trembled. Qin Feiyong said, "At that time I took the imperial jade seal to the castle. You should also remember this, right? It was after entering the castle that I tampered with the imperial jade seal." The imperial preceptor's gaze trembled. It turned out that at that time, Qin Feiyong had already set a trap for him. "Little bastard, I'm going to kill you." The next moment, his entire body emitted a monstrous aura. Back then, he had used the 10,000 beasts diagram as the price to exchange for the purple gold dragon blood from Qin Feiyong. If the plan succeeded and he lost the 10,000 beasts diagram, he didn't care. But in the end, not only did he lose the 10,000 beasts diagram, he was also tricked by Qin Feiyong, causing him to lose everything. How could he not be angry? Immediately, with a monstrous killing intent, he took a step towards Qin Feiyong. "You dare!" Emperor Hong and Elder Qin shouted at the same time. "Now that things have come to this, what else is there that I don't dare to do? Qin Feiyong, you want to kill me? I won't let you have it easy." The imperial preceptor laughed sinisterly. Stubborn. Elder Qin and Emperor Hong were furious to the extreme. With a wave of their hands, the rolling divine might roared out. The two joined forces and forcibly brought the imperial preceptor up into the sky. Because if they fought in the square, the imperial city would be turned into ashes in an instant. There's a good show to watch. The commander of the Kirin army walked in front of Qin Feiyong and joked. Qin Feiyong laughed. "I have been waiting for this day for a long time." The commander of the Kirin army looked at Qin Feiyong in surprise, then shook his head and smiled. No matter what Qin Feiyong had done, Qin Feiyong's heart had always been concerned about the great Qin Empire. This point would never change. But then, in the heart of the commander of the Kirin army, he was full of worry again. Looking at Qin Feiyong's attitude, he also wanted to help the little prince ascend to the throne. This was obviously going against His Majesty. After this matter, the grudge between the father and son would definitely get deeper and deeper. The most important thing was, now, the little prince's succession to the throne had become a foregone conclusion. What should His Majesty do in the future? How could he face this matter? After all, the little prince was also his own flesh and blood. Chapter 1384. Above the sky, the dark clouds were even denser. The wind roared and thunder and lightning roared. Old Qin and the imperial tutor's aura were like rainbows as they fought crazily. The two's speed was pushed to the limit. Other than the fake gods, no one could catch their traces. They could only hear the deafening collision sounds. And every time they collided, the void they were in would shatter. Even the sky was trembling. But Emperor Hong did not make a move. He joined forces with Old Qin and forcefully brought the imperial tutor up to the sky. He retreated far away and looked at the two from afar. His face returned to its usual calmness. The Kirin army commander frowned and said, "Now that the evidence is conclusive, why didn't Emperor Hong join forces with Old Qin and quickly kill the imperial tutor? He's a person with his eyes on top of his head and thinks he's infallible. How could he make a move so easily?" Qin Feiyong snorted coldly. If he wanted Emperor Hong to make a move, unless Old Qin was no match for him. Sigh. When the Kirin army commander heard this, he couldn't help but sigh. Such a good opportunity, why didn't he grasp it well? At this time, Qin Jun, who was paralyzed on the ground, suddenly got up from the ground and looked at Qin Feiyong. There was a hint of pleading in his eyes. Qin Feiyong looked at Qin Jun and said, "If you didn't get up, I would have almost forgotten about you." Qin Jun's gaze trembled as he sent a sound transmission. "Feiyong, it was all a misunderstanding before." "Misunderstanding?" Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "You instigated Emperor Hong to kill me in front of everyone. Is this a misunderstanding? And the killing intent in your eyes at that time, even a fool could see it. Is this also a misunderstanding?" "It's really a misunderstanding. I did that purely to motivate you." Qin Jun's face stiffened as he hurriedly explained. "Motivate me?" Qin Feiyong was amused and said, "Then according to what you said, you're still doing it for my own good? Shouldn't I thank you?" "There's no need to be grateful. After all, we're family." Qin Jun secretly laughed. "Family?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. Emperor Hong is your great-grandfather and my master. If we're not family, what are we? Qin Jun smiled. Qin Feiyong suddenly understood and said, now that you mention it, we are indeed a family. Yeah. Qin Jun nodded. Yes, your sister. Kneel down. Qin Feiyong bellowed, his face instantly turning gloomy. Did he take him for a fool? Do you think he'll believe you just because of a few words? What a joke. Qin Jun's face stiffened. He didn't expect Qin Feiyong to turn hostile so quickly. Furthermore, there was no sound transmission. Everyone heard Qin Feiyong shout. Immediately, everyone looked at Qin Jun in unison, their eyes full of sympathy. Of all the people he could provoke, he had to provoke Qin Feiyong. Wasn't he courting death? Moreover, no one present was a fool. Although they didn't hear the conversation between the two, from Qin Feiyong's shout and attitude, they couldn't tell that Qin Jun was definitely pretending to be pitiful, gaining sympathy, and begging for mercy from Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong looked at Qin Jun expressionlessly and said, I told you to kneel down, didn't you hear me? Do you want me to force you to make a move? Qin Jun's face was gloomy. One had to know that he was someone by Emperor Hong's side. Even if the imperial tutor and elder Qin saw him, they would have to be polite. However, at this moment Qin Feiyong actually told him to kneel in front of everyone. Wasn't this clearly embarrassing him? The commander of the Kirin army said playfully, Lord Qin Jun, have you forgotten the bet from before? Hearing this, Qin Jun was like a bolt from the blue, his body and mind trembling. That old face was once again filled with despair. His entire body couldn't help but go soft, and he powerlessly knelt in front of Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong sneered, what I hate the most is a dog like you who uses its master's power to bully others. You don't have any ability, and you rely on others to support you every day. I was wrong. For the sake of Emperor Hong's face, spare me this time. After all, I am still someone by Emperor Hong's side. Qin Jun pleaded. You can be considered a human? At most, you are a dog that can bite. Qin Feiyong smiled disdainfully. Qin Jun nodded repeatedly and said, yes, 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 I am a dog. Just pity me and give me a chance, okay? If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will kill them. This is my principle. Especially those who want to kill me, I, Qin Feiyong, will definitely not let them go. Killing intent surged in Qin Feiyong's eyes. Little bastard, don't go too far. Do you think I'm really afraid of you? You're just a mere 4-star war king. If I want to kill you, it's as easy as flipping my hand. Qin Jun flew into a rage out of humiliation. He suddenly raised his arm and slapped towards Qin Feiyong. Impudent. The Kirin army commander's expression changed. He immediately raised his arm and punched towards Qin Jun tsk tisk. But at this time, a sinister laugh rang out. Following closely, a wave of thunder energy appeared out of thin air, like sharp blades, and entered Qin Jun's chi-si like lightning. Ah! Accompanied by a mournful scream, Qin Jun's chi-si was crippled on the spot, and blood flowed out from his lower abdomen. Bang! Then, Qin Jun fell powerlessly at Qin Feiyong's feet, hugging his lower abdomen, and wailing silently. The Kirin army commander was stunned. The others were also shocked. Who was so strong that they could instantly cripple a 9-star combat Emperor Realm super expert? Everyone looked over. They saw that Qin Feiyong had a Lei Bao. It's him. Seeing Lei Bao, the surrounding civil and military officials, including the Marshal Marquis, all took a few steps back, their faces full of fear. Lei Bao had long been notorious in the imperial capital. Even his reputation was not inferior to Qin Feiyong's. The cheetah scanned the crowd and grinned. I am so kind, what are you afraid of? Kind? To hell with it. Everyone rolled their eyes. He even dared to flirt with the emperor's concubines and princesses, and even dared to auction the empress's underwear at the treasure pavilion. Everyone knew that he was shameless, but could there be a limit? Lei Bao was not ashamed. Instead, he was proud. His expression was full of pride as he lowered his head to look at Qin Jun, who was lying on the ground, and said contemptuously, seeing how arrogant you are, I thought you were strong. I didn't expect that you were just a piece of trash. Qin Jun looked at the man and beast with a sinister expression, and said resentfully, I curse you to die a horrible death. You even believe in curses? As expected of an idiot, Lei Bao's eyes were filled with disdain. Before he finished speaking, its body suddenly expanded to dozens of feet, and then it opened its mouth wide, revealing its dense fangs, and swallowed Qin Jun into its stomach in one gulp. Gulp! Seeing this scene, everyone present felt their hearts skip a beat as they swallowed their saliva. A 9-star War Emperor realm expert was actually swallowed alive by Lei Bao just like that. This guy was too savage. Above the sky, Emperor Hong also noticed this situation. He lowered his head to look at Lei Bao, and a cold light flashed across his eyes. Lei Bao was not afraid at all. He raised his head to meet Emperor Hong's gaze, full of provocation. Boom! Crack! The battle between Elder Qin and the Imperial Tutor had already reached its climax. The power of the false god, the divine art, and the divine might constantly collided with each other. Waves of world-destroying air waves surged out in all directions like raging waves. The entire sky above the Imperial City had already shattered. Although the battle fluctuations did not affect the Imperial City below, everyone in the Imperial City could not help but feel a sense of fear that could not be dissipated. It felt like the end of the world was coming. Qin Feiyong raised his head to look at the two of them, and his brows gradually furrowed. Elder Qin and the Imperial Tutor's strength were basically on par. The final result was hard to predict. It could be the Imperial Tutor's death, or it could be Elder Qin's death. The commander of the Kirin army said in a low voice, "We can't drag this on any longer. We have to think of a way to get Emperor Hong to make a move." "Don't count on it." Qin Feiyong glanced at Emperor Hong and said indifferently, "Then what should we do? Even if Elder Qin can kill the Imperial Tutor in the end, Elder Qin will definitely lose half his life." The commander of the Kirin army was extremely anxious. Without Emperor Hong, the Imperial Tutor will still die today. Qin Feiyong coldly snorted and whispered, "Lu Xingchen, you've seen enough, right? It's time to make your move." Lu Xingchen? The commander of the Kirin army was stunned, and looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. Qin Feiyong did not explain and looked at the sky, his eyes flickering. At the same time, inside the spatial divine object, Lu Xingchen glanced at Qin Feiyong, and then controlled the spatial divine object, flying towards the sky. "Lord, you have to be careful," Mu Qing warned. "Don't worry, the Imperial Tutor and Elder Qin are fighting fiercely right now. They won't think that I will appear at all. Just one strike is enough to take his life." Lu Xingchen smiled confidently. Whoosh! While they were talking, the spatial divine object had already quietly swept to the center of the battlefield. Lu Xingchen looked at the Imperial Tutor in the screen, killing intent flashing in his eyes. "This Imperial Tutor's fate is really bad. To actually meet you and Qin Feiyong at the same time." Mu Qing shook his head and smiled. Lu Xingchen chuckled, took out an illusory form pill, threw it into his mouth, and in the blink of an eye, turned into a middle-aged man. Although the Imperial Tutor is already an arrow at the end of its flight, Lord should still be careful. "Don't get angry," Mu Qing said. "Even if I get angry, it doesn't matter. Because the miracle is about to open." Lu Xingchen smiled faintly, and in the next moment, disappeared in front of Mu Qing. "Humph! If Emperor Hong doesn't make a move with your strength alone, you can't kill me at all." Outside, the Imperial Tutor sneered secretly while fighting with Elder Qin. "Then let's wait and see." Elder Qin's eyes were sharp, like the edge of a blade, causing people to be intimidated. Bang bang bang. Both of them were really angry, sparing no expense and resorting to unscrupulous means. But just as the two of them were locked in battle, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared behind the Imperial Tutor. "Who is it?" Elder Qin was shocked. The people below also saw the middle-aged man for the first time, and their faces were full of surprise. Someone actually dared to interfere in the battle between the Imperial Tutor and Elder Qin? He couldn't be a fake god too. As for the Imperial Tutor, when he sensed the aura behind him, he was also shocked and took a step to the side without hesitation. "Old bastard, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time." The middle-aged man smiled coldly, and a wisp of divine sense emerged, exuding a monstrous divine might, and swept towards the back of the Imperial Tutor's head like lightning. That's right, he was Lu Xingchen. Is it an alliance? Then it seems that it's someone arranged by Qin Feiyong. A good opportunity. Chapter 1385. In front of him was Elder Qin, a terrifying false god, and behind him was Lu Xingqian, an existence that was not inferior to a false god. In addition, everything happened so suddenly that the imperial advisor had no time to counterattack. No! When Zhuge Wuhou, Zhuge Nanhua, and the others saw this scene, they couldn't help but anxiously roar in their hearts. As for the Kirin army's commander, his face was filled with excitement. He was finally going to get rid of this ambitious person. And at this time Emperor Hong, who had been watching coldly from the sidelines, also moved. The aura he emitted was even stronger than the imperial advisor and Elder Qin. Without a doubt, Emperor Hong was the same as Mu Changfeng. He was also a supreme existence at the peak of the false god realm. Facing Elder Qin, Lu Xingqian, and Emperor Hong, these three great false gods, if nothing unexpected happened, the imperial advisor would undoubtedly die today. But, just as the imperial advisor was about to die, Emperor Hong suddenly slapped Elder Qin's back. Pfft! Elder Qin immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out like a kite with a broken string. This unforeseen event not only caught Lu Xingqian and Qin Feiyang off guard, but everyone present was also stunned. Originally, everyone thought that Emperor Hong was going to kill the imperial advisor, but they never thought that his target was actually Elder Qin. What's going on? Everyone's hearts were filled with doubts. The situation had changed too quickly, hadn't it? Just as Emperor Hong made his move on Elder Qin, the originally panicked imperial advisor's old face suddenly revealed a cold light, and he slapped his palm towards Lu Xingqian's divine sense. Boom! Lu Xingqian's divine sense was destroyed on the spot. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. And just like Elder Qin, he was sent flying, his face deathly pale. This strength? Lu Xingqian looked at the imperial advisor in shock. Why is it like this? Qin Feiyang muttered. Why would Emperor Hong help the imperial advisor to plot against Elder Qin? This result was completely out of his expectations. Above the sky, Emperor Hong looked at Lu Xingqian, a cold light surging in his eyes, and said, "This old man has been waiting for you for a long time. Finish speaking." Emperor Hong and the state preceptor looked at each other and joined hands to attack Lu Xingqian. Waiting for me? Lu Xingqian was bewildered. Emperor Hong said, "I've long heard from Imperial Preceptor that Qin Feiyang has a false god hidden by his side. So this old man has always been very curious. Just who is this false god? Are you luring me out?" Lu Xingqian was both shocked and angry. "That's right. However, although I've successfully lured you out, this old man is even more puzzled after seeing you in person. You are only a 5-star combat emperor. Why do you have a divine consciousness?" Emperor Hong asked suspiciously. Although he was speaking, his speed was not slow at all. Before he finished speaking, Emperor Hong and the state preceptor arrived in front of Lu Xingqian, grabbing at Lu Xingqian from both sides. "Qin Feiyang, you bastard! How dare you betray me?" When Lu Xingqian heard Emperor Hong's words, he immediately lowered his head and roared at Qin Feiyang. He thought that Qin Feiyang was also involved. Not daring to have the slightest doubt, he immediately prepared to enter the spatial divine object. Boom! However, at almost the same time, Emperor Hong and the state preceptor released their might, imprisoning Lu Xingqian in the air. Seeing that Lu Xingqian was imprisoned, the two of them did not immediately kill him. What? But seeing the state preceptor's might, Lu Xingqian's expression changed. Qin Feiyang's expression also changed abruptly. They all knew that Emperor Hong was a supreme existence at the peak of the false god realm. However, the state preceptor's might was not the slightest bit inferior to Emperor Hong's. What was going on? The state preceptor glanced at Qin Feiyang, then looked at Lu Xingqian and sneered. "You guys look very surprised. You've been hiding your cultivation all this time?" Lu Xingqian said in a deep voice. "No, I didn't hide it. It's just that I was lucky. A few days ago I just broke through to the peak of the false god realm." The state preceptor said. "What?" Qin Feiyang's mind trembled. Why didn't Yin Wei tell him such an important thing? Did the state preceptor not reveal it? Or had Yin Wei's identity been discovered, and the state preceptor deliberately hid it from him? "Your face should be fake. I'm very curious, who are you?" The state preceptor smiled coldly, took out a facial restoration pill, and stuffed it into Lu Xingchen's mouth. Soon, Lu Xingchen recovered his true appearance. How could it be you? Looking at Lu Xingchen's face, the state preceptor's face was full of disbelief. Below, those who knew Lu Xingchen were also surprised. Wasn't he a disciple of the temple? How could he be a false god? No, he wasn't a false god, he just had the divine sense of a war god. Old Qin had also stabilized his body, standing in the void in the distance, glanced at Lu Xingchen, then looked at Emperor Hong and said angrily, "Why? In this world, how can there be so many whys?" Emperor Hong snorted coldly, looked at Lu Xingchen and asked, "Who the hell are you? Why have I never seen you before?" "Who am I?" Lu Xingchen murmured. At the same time, old Qin took a step forward and rushed towards Qin Feiyang. The situation suddenly became like this. This place was no longer a place to stay for a long time. He had to take Qin Feiyang away as soon as possible. Stop him! But suddenly, Emperor Hong shouted, "Boom!" 3 terrifying auras burst out from the ground. 2 of them came from the crowd outside the square. They were 2 old men with white hair and vast divine power. 2 more false gods. People retreated in horror. What was going on today? Why did so many false gods pop out at once? The 2 old men looked at each other and rushed into the sky like lightning. They raised their big hands and slapped Old Man Qin's chest from the left and right. Old Man Qin was sent flying again. Old Man Qin spurted out blood. His entire chest caved in and his ribs were all shattered. Even his heart was broken. But a broken heart was nothing to a false god. Old Qin stabilized himself in the void, clutching his chest, looking gloomily at the 2 old men and said, "You guys actually came out of seclusion." The 2 old men were silent, their eyes flashing with a cold light. "Wait, where is the other divine power?" The people looked around in surprise. Suddenly, their gazes were locked on the head eunuch in the center of the square. That divine power came from the head eunuch. At this moment, Qin Feiyang and the commander of the Kirin army, as well as Lei Bao, were all imprisoned by the head eunuch. The eyes of the 2 men and 1 beast were also filled with shock. They all knew the strength of the head eunuch. It was impossible for him to be a false god. There must be something fishy going on. As if seeing through Qin Feiyang and Lei Bao's thoughts, the head eunuch smiled contemptuously, took out a facial restoration pill, and put it into his mouth. This head eunuch is a disguise. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. Soon, the head eunuch turned into another face. It was an old man with white hair and a pale face. The old man in front of him, as well as the 2 people blocking old Qin Feiyang was no stranger to them. They were the 3 false gods that sealed themselves in the back mountain of the imperial palace. Why were all 3 of them here? He had clearly taken out the evidence of the imperial preceptor forging the imperial jade seal. So why did Emperor Hong attack old Qin? If Emperor Hong's goal was Lu Xingchen, then now that his goal had been achieved, why did he still attack him? At this moment, Qin Feiyang's mind was in a mess. All of this was far beyond his expectations. It seems that I have misunderstood Qin Feiyang. Seeing Qin Feiyang's situation, Lu Xingchen secretly muttered. But soon after, countless questions crawled up in his heart. What the hell is going on? The imperial preceptor looked at Lu Xingchen, Qin Feiyang, old Qin, and the commander of the Kirin army and sneered, "Today, none of you can escape." After saying that, he looked at Lu Xingchen and shouted, "Quickly answer Emperor Hong's words. Who are you?" "Me?" The corner of Lu Xingchen's mouth lifted, and said with a smile, "I am the person you don't want to see the most." Scaring imperial preceptor? The imperial preceptor said, "Look at me, do I look like I'm scaring you? But now I don't want to tell you." Lu Xingchen said, "I'm afraid that's not up to you." The imperial preceptor sneered. "You don't really think that with this level of pressure you can control me? Let me tell you, you're too naive." Lu Xingchen raised his head and roared. More than a dozen strands of divine sense flew out from the top of his head, directly shattering the majesty of the imperial preceptor and Emperor Hong. Such a strong divine sense. Their expressions changed. "I, Lu Xingchen, will remember today's debt. In the future I will definitely repay it double. Qin Feiyang, you're on your own." Lu Xingchen smiled coldly and instantly disappeared without a trace. Facing two peak false gods, he really didn't dare to stay any longer, nor did he have the strength to help Qin Feiyang. Emperor Hong and Emperor Hong were furious. Their divine sense surged out, covering the sky and earth as it surged in all directions. In just an instant, they captured Lu Xingqian's spatial divine object. But just as they were about to intercept, 10 figures appeared in the sky above the imperial city without any warning. They were all wearing masks, so their faces couldn't be seen clearly. However, the aura emitted by each of them was incomparably terrifying. Who are they? Everyone looked at the 10 people in surprise. Emperor Hong, the imperial preceptor, and the 3 old men were also extremely surprised. Because with their eyesight, they could tell at a glance that these 10 people were all false gods. 10 people stood side by side in the void, as if 10 gods had descended, coldly scanning everyone. Anyone who had been looked at by them couldn't help but feel a deep fear in their hearts. "Greetings, young master." Suddenly, the 10 of them uniformly landed in front of Qin Feiyang and bowed. What? They are all Qin Feiyang's subordinates. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded, including Elder Qin, the commander of the Kirin army, Lei Bao. The imperial preceptor, Emperor Hong, and the 3 old men were also in disbelief. Qin Feiyang actually had 10 false gods under his command? What kind of joke was this? He must be dreaming. Lu Xingqian, who was about to escape, also had a face of astonishment. Mu Qing, who was next to him, even had his eyes popping out. Not to mention them, Qin Feiyang himself was also dumbfounded. Suddenly, 10 false gods popped out and said that they were his subordinates? Was it really not the heavens joking with him? "Young master, we came late to save you, please forgive us." One of them spoke. However, as he spoke, he gave Qin Feiyang a meaningful glance without leaving any trace. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. Seeing that Qin Feiyang didn't understand, the man sent a sound transmission. "This place is not suitable to stay for long. Leave immediately." Finished. With a wave of his hand, the pressure that imprisoned Qin Feiyang and the commander of the Kirin army instantly disappeared. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and without hesitation, he reached out his big hand, grabbed the commander of the Kirin army and Lei Bao, and entered the castle. After entering the castle, he didn't stay for a moment and immediately drove the castle away. Seeing Qin Feiyang slip away, Lu Xingqian also quickly slipped away. "Damn it! Who are you? Why are you interfering in my great Qin's affairs?" The imperial preceptor roared. Emperor Hong's face was also extremely ugly. "We don't care about your great Qin's affairs at all. We only care about the safety of the young master." Chapter 1386. Young Lord. The imperial preceptor muttered to himself and roared. "He's just a brat. What ability does he have to make you fake gods work for him?" His expression was hysterical. That person said indifferently, "Don't underestimate the young lord, because sooner or later, he will let you taste true despair. This imperial preceptor wants to taste it now. If you have the guts, call him back and fight one-on-one with this imperial preceptor." The imperial preceptor roared again and again. The meat that had reached his mouth did not fall off just like that. This kind of sullen feeling almost made him go crazy. "One-on-one? Don't you feel ashamed to say such words?" That person laughed mockingly. The other 9 people also revealed looks of disdain towards the imperial preceptor. A dignified fake god actually wanted to fight a 4-star war emperor one-on-one? Wasn't this a joke? Whoosh! The 10 of them did not waste any more words and rushed into the sky one after another, landing beside Elder Qin. The 2 people who were blocking Elder Qin immediately became nervous. The 10 of them looked at the 2 of them and did not say a word. Bringing Elder Qin, they turned around and left. "Halt!" The imperial preceptor was unable to restrain his anger as he shouted. "What kind of place do you think the imperial city is? How can you come and go as you please?" But the 10 of them did not pay attention to him at all. The imperial preceptor was about to chase after them when Emperor Hong reached out to stop him. He shook his head and said, "Forget it." The imperial preceptor raised his eyebrows and said, "Emperor Hong, they are openly provoking the imperial power." But without waiting for the imperial preceptor to finish speaking, Emperor Hong opened his mouth and said, Of course this old man knows that they are deliberately provoking us, but what can we do if we leave them behind? The imperial preceptor fell silent. The other party had 10 fake gods. Including Elder Qin, it was 11. Although he and Emperor Hong were both peak fake gods, and there were still 3 fake gods below them, if they really fought, it would probably be a situation where both sides would suffer. However, he was really unwilling to give up just like that. Emperor Hong patted the imperial preceptor's shoulder and comforted him. There will be plenty of time in the future. There will always be a chance. Sigh. The imperial preceptor sighed deeply and followed Emperor Hong to the center of the plaza. The 3 old men also immediately landed behind Emperor Hong and stood respectfully. And throughout the entire process, the little prince who was sitting on the dragon throne did not say a single word. He sat there watching all of this expressionlessly, in a trance. Everyone had the misconception that the little prince seemed to have grown several decades in an instant, giving off a profound feeling. Emperor Hong glanced at the little prince, turned his head to look at the civil and military officials, and said, "I believe that everyone has a lot of questions in their hearts right now. Raise them all. This old man will answer them one by one." The Marquis of Xiaowu was the first to walk out. He cupped his hands and said, "Lord Emperor Hong, previously, Qin Feiyang had already confirmed that the imperial advisor was forging the imperial jade seal. However, why did Lord Emperor Hong not punish the imperial advisor according to the law and instead attack Qin Feiyang?" Emperor Hong pondered for a moment and said, "This matter is an enormous humiliation to our great Qin. This old man truly does not wish to speak of it. Lord Emperor Hong, please tell me the truth." "Yes." If Lord Emperor Hong doesn't say anything, we can't help but suspect that Lord Emperor Hong might have some selfish motives. A few prestigious old ministers stood out and said, "How dare you? As the son of the previous emperor, how could Lord Emperor Hong have any selfish motives?" The imperial advisor said angrily. "Imperial advisor, don't blame them. They said this because they are concerned about the safety of our great Qin." Emperor Hong waved his hand and said, "Yes." The imperial advisor nodded respectfully. Next, Emperor Hong swept his gaze across the civil and military officials and asked, "Do you really want to know?" Everyone nodded. The people outside the square were also curious. Sigh. Emperor Hong let out a long sigh and said, "Fine. This old man will tell everyone the truth. In fact, the previous emperor did not abdicate because he broke through to the false god realm." The previous emperor was naturally referring to the little prince's father. Everyone was bewildered. Marquis Xiao asked, "Then what is the reason?" "He's dead." Emperor Hong said. "What? His Majesty is dead. How is this possible? Who dares to kill His Majesty?" This place immediately exploded. Everyone's face was filled with disbelief. "Everyone be quiet," Emperor Hong said. In an instant the entire audience quieted down. Emperor Hong sighed and said, "The person who killed the emperor is none other than the emperor's own son, Qin Feiyang." Everyone once again fell into shock. Back then, the imperial advisor had something to discuss with the emperor, but the emperor was in the imperial study and did not respond for a long time. The imperial advisor felt that something was wrong and hurriedly pushed open the door of the imperial study. As a result, he found the emperor's body on the ground. And the imperial jade seal had also disappeared. When the imperial advisor saw this scene, he immediately informed this old man. When this old man rushed over, the emperor had already died. At that time this old man was very angry. Someone actually dared to murder the emperor of my great Qin. So this old man immediately asked the imperial advisor to send someone to look for this murderer. But this person did it too secretly, and we had no trace of him at all. Later, this old man and the imperial advisor discussed and decided to set up a trap to lure this person out. Emperor Hong said. Marquis Xiao said, "So, you announced to the outside world that His Majesty had broken through to the false god realm, and was going to give up the throne to the little prince?" "Yes. This person killed the emperor and took away the imperial jade seal. He definitely wants to get his hands on my great Qin's rivers and mountains." Thinking of this old man immediately asked the imperial advisor to forge an imperial jade seal and announce the news of the little prince's succession. If this person is really coveting my great Qin's rivers and mountains, he will definitely appear on the day of the little prince's succession. Sure enough, as we expected, this person appeared. But this old man never thought that he was actually Qin Feiyang. Emperor Hong said with a pained heart, "Bastard! For the sake of the throne, he even killed his own father. This Qin Feiyang is simply crazy." Everyone immediately roared. Isn't that so? But we also know that Qin Feiyang has a false god protecting him, so when Qin Feiyang took out the imperial jade seal, Emperor Hong did not expose him at the first moment. Instead, he attacked me together with old Qin. He did this to lure out the false god beside Qin Feiyang. The imperial advisor said. So that's how it is. Everyone nodded in realization. Marquis Qianwu asked. In that case, old Qin and the commander of the Kirin army also had a part in killing His Majesty? Yes. They have long been bribed by Qin Feiyang. Emperor Hong nodded. How preposterous. His Majesty's kindness to them is as heavy as a mountain. They actually colluded with Qin Feiyang to secretly harm His Majesty and usurp the throne. They deserve to die 10,000 times. A furious roar sounded out from the crowd. It was Zhuge Wu Ho who was roaring. He was fanning the flames because this way, everyone's hatred for Qin Feiyang and the other two would rise to a whole new level. As expected. Hearing his words, everyone present was filled with anger. Wait. But suddenly, a voice sounded. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice, only to see that the one who spoke was Marquis Xiao. Marquis Xiao, do you have any other questions? The imperial advisor asked patiently. Marquis Xiao said, this subject does not dare to doubt Lord Emperor Hong's words, but after this subject finished listening, a few difficult questions arose in his heart. Speak. Emperor Hong said. As far as I know, when the previous emperor created the imperial jade seal, he had fused with the purple gold dragon blood. As for the imperial advisor, even you, Lord Emperor Hong, could not distinguish the fake imperial jade seal. Zhuge Wuho glanced at the ministers beside him, his eyes flashing slightly as he stepped forward and said, this subject has a question. Speak. Emperor Hong said. Zhuge Wuho said, this old subject would like to ask, does the little prince's succession still count? Of course. Right now, the little prince is the emperor of my great Qin. The imperial advisor will personally assist him, and all of you must serve the little prince wholeheartedly. Emperor Hong said. We obey Emperor Hong's orders. The ministers knelt down. Greetings, Your Majesty. Wolf King glared at him. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and shook his head. If it were before, my heart would definitely be like you, filled with anger and unwillingness. But now these can no longer affect my emotions. Your endurance is really admirable. Lei Bao snorted coldly. There was a trace of ridicule in his words. Lu Zheng heard Lei Bao's words, shook his head and sighed. This is not a question of whether I can endure it or not. Then what is it? Lei Bao raised his eyebrows. It's a kind of despair. Right now, little cousin doesn't have any hope for the great Qin, the descendants of the Qin bloodline or Emperor Hong. In short, he has completely given up on Emperor Hong and the others. So, these things naturally can't affect him. Lu Zheng said. Lei Bao fell silent. It didn't understand before why a noble son of an emperor would fall to such a state. Why did he hate the people of the imperial palace so much? But now it understood. This was all forced out of him by his family. Qin Feiyang glanced at Lu Zheng. He didn't expect this amazing cousin to know him so well. He looked at Yan Wei and asked, is the imperial preceptor already suspecting your identity? Yan Wei was stunned and puzzled. No, why do you say that? Since he doesn't suspect you, why didn't he tell you about breaking through to the peak of the pseudo-divinity realm? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. So that's it. Yan Wei suddenly understood and said with a smile, there's no problem because even Zhuge Wuho, Zhuge Nanhua, and the others don't know that he has broken through. Qin Feiyang let out a long breath and shook his head. I thought he had found out about your identity and deliberately hid it from you. Yan Wei said, this old fox is so cautious. He hides many things in his heart. Then you better be careful. Don't let him get hold of your weakness. Qin Feiyang reminded. I understand. Yin Wei nodded. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and said, by the way, there's one more thing that I only learned about after. What is it? Qin Feiyang asked. Yin Wei said, the chief eunuch has been killed. Qin Feiyang said with a cold smile, this old fogey is really vicious and merciless. Yin Wei glanced at the Kirin army commander beside Qin Feiyang and said, also, old Qin and the commander have been accused of treason by the imperial preceptor. What? The Kirin army commander's body stiffened. Fatso glanced at the Kirin army commander and snorted. You were clearly doing it for the good of the great Qin. But in the end, you were accused of treason. Now you can understand how Boss felt in the past, right? The Kirin army commander's face was full of bitter smiles. Frankly speaking, he was indeed very dissatisfied with Qin Feiyang's way of doing things in the past. But at that time it was because he didn't understand Qin Feiyang. After this incident, he understood that he couldn't blame Qin Feiyang. Fatso suddenly looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Boss, don't you still have the emperor's handwritten edict? Will this handwritten order be of any use now? The Kirin army commander was stunned and hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, what edict? Qin Feiyang took out the edict and threw it to the Kirin army commander. The Kirin army commander opened it and looked, and a trace of anger crept up his face. He understood the emperor's personality. This edict must have been written by Qin Feiyang. Lu Zheng looked at the Kirin army commander, then looked at the edict and shook his head. This edict is meaningless. Yes, Emperor Hong is determined to harm me. When I take out the edict, he will definitely say that I forced him to write it before killing the emperor. Moreover, I was the one who forced the emperor to write this decree. Qin Feiyang said. Lu Zheng looked at Qin Feiyang and the Kirin army commander, and said, it seems that there is only one way to prove your innocence. What way? The Kirin army commander asked. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, is there a need to say? Naturally, we will find the emperor and let him stand up and explain everything. Good idea. The Kirin army commander's eyes lit up. Good idea? Qin Feiyang sneered. The emperor had long wanted to kill him, and the current situation was probably what the emperor was looking forward to. How could he stand up and help him? The Kirin army commander said, I know you have a prejudice against His Majesty, but His Majesty is not an unreasonable person. When he knows the truth, when he knows that you are doing all this for the good of the great Qin, he will definitely help us. Don't be naive. Can't you see the current emperor clearly? Except for himself, no one has anything to do with him. Fatso sneered. He won't. I believe that His Majesty is not such an unreasonable person. The Kirin army commander shook his head. You really won't give up until you hit the wall. In that case, boss, immediately send him to Yuzhou and let him die with a clear understanding, Fatso said. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang looked at the Kirin army commander and said, you really want to go? Yes. The Kirin army commander nodded. Well, I will fulfill your wish. Qin Feiyang took out the spacetime gate, handed it to Wang Yishan and said, accompany him to Yuzhou. Yes. Wang Yishan respectfully responded and grabbed the spacetime gate. Immediately, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent the two of them out. Fatso snorted coldly and said, this Kirin army commander is really hopelessly stupid. But it is undeniable that he is a selfless person like Elder Qin. Lu Zheng said with a smile. That's true. Fatso nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at Yin Wei and said, have you found out the identity of the 10 fake gods that appeared later? Hearing Qin Feiyang's question, Fatso and the others all looked at Lu Zheng. I haven't found out. Yin Wei shook his head. Strange. Who are they? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. To be able to dispatch 10 fake gods at once, in the entire Great Qin Empire, there was probably only. Thinking of this, he suddenly turned his head to look at Lu Zheng. Lu Zheng touched his nose and said, why are you looking at me? I didn't do anything. Stop pretending. Fatso rolled his eyes at Lu Zheng and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. Boss, not long ago, we saw with our own eyes that he sent a message to second grandpa asking for help. Is he really from the Lu family? Qin Feiyang was stunned and then frowned. Then why did he call me young master? Well, of course it's to hide his identity, because if you can think of it, the imperial preceptor and Emperor Hong can also think of it. In the entire Great Qin Empire, only my Lu family can dispatch 10 fake gods at once. Calling you young master in public is to make Emperor Hong and the others mistakenly think that they are your subordinates. This way they will not think of my Lu family. Lu Zheng said. Qin Feiyong suddenly understood. Fatso shook his head and said, your Lu family is so strong. Fat Lord really doesn't understand. What are you afraid of? Lu Zheng said, I'm also very curious, but second grandpa just won't say. But my big brother should know. Your big brother? Everyone looked at him suspiciously. My big brother is a true demon-level genius, said Qin Wentian. Lu Zheng smiled proudly. How monstrous is he? Everyone was curious. You will know how monstrous he is when you see him in the future. In short, he is the most promising person in my Lu family to step into the war god realm. Lu Zheng said mysteriously. Yes. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Chapter 1388. Yin Wei came back to his senses, looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, what's your next step? What do you think? Qin Feiyong asked. I don't know. But I know that you won't give up after suffering such a big loss this time. Yin Wei said with a smile. Of course. Wait for me for a while. I'll contact Lu Xingqian and Elder Qin first. Qin Feiyong said. Okay. Yin Wei nodded. After saying that, the virtual image dissipated. Qin Feiyong also immediately sent a message to Elder Qin. Buzz. After a short while, Elder Qin's virtual image appeared. Behind Old Man Qin was a stretch of mountains and rivers that stretched as far as the eye could see. How are you doing now? Qin Feiyong asked with a smile. Why are you still smiling at this time? Elder Qin stared at Qin Feiyong and said, give me your current coordinates. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. After giving Elder Qin the coordinates, he sent a message to Lu Xingqian. Subsequently, Qin Feiyong left the castle and stood in the void above the mountain range, waiting quietly. Not long after, Elder Qin and Lu Xingqian arrived one after another. I didn't expect that the two of us would make a mistake. As soon as Lu Xingqian appeared, he looked at Qin Feiyong and shook his head with a bitter smile. His words were full of self-mockery. Yes, we were one step behind. Qin Feiyong nodded and sighed. You're not gods. It's normal to miscalculate. Elder Qin rolled his eyes at the two of them, looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, where's the commander of the Kirin army? He went to find the emperor. Qin Feiyong said. Why did he go to find the emperor? Elder Qin raised his eyebrows. He wants the emperor to stand up and help us. Qin Feiyong said. Alas! The little prince has succeeded to the throne. With the protection of the emperor and the imperial advisor, even if the emperor were to return now, he would still be powerless to reverse the situation. Old Qin sighed. Lu Xingqian listened to their conversation and frowned. You guys really know where the emperor is? It has something to do with you. Old Mr. Qin looked at Lu Xingqian. Since it's a cooperation, we should be honest with each other, right? Lu Xingqian said. All right, now is not the time for internal strife. This time, I fell into the hands of Emperor Hong and the imperial advisor. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I'm very unhappy. Qin Feiyong said, his eyes flashing with cold light. Then what do you want? Lu Xingqian was stunned and asked curiously. However, old Qin's expression changed abruptly as he hurriedly said, Brat, don't act recklessly. It wasn't easy for us to escape. The imperial advisor had already stepped into the peak of the false god realm. Coupled with Emperor Hong, the current imperial capital was equivalent to a dragon's pool and tiger's den. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, don't worry, I won't act recklessly. However, I need your cooperation. Lu Xingqian said, as long as you can vent this anger, no matter what you ask me to do, I'm willing to do it. This time, the imperial advisor and Emperor Hong had completely angered him. Old Qin looked at the two of them and hesitated for a moment. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, as long as you don't do anything to harm the Great Qin Empire, this old man has no objections. All right then, come closer. Qin Feiyong said in a low voice. The two of them looked at each other and walked in front of Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong immediately muttered in a low voice. After listening to Qin Feiyong's plan, Lu Xingchen and old Qin couldn't help but frown. What's wrong? You still don't dare? Qin Feiyong asked. Lu Xingchen said in a deep voice, this is not child's play. The Imperial Advisor and Emperor Hong are both supreme existences at the peak of the false god realm. With old Qin and my strength, we can't beat them at all. Qin Feiyong said, don't worry about that. As long as you rush over, I'll give you Chang Shui in case you need it. That's good. With Chang Shui here, we might even be able to counterattack. Lu Xingchen's eyes lit up. Counterattack? You're thinking too much. With their strength, if they want to escape, even if we have Chang Shui, we won't be able to stop them. Old Qin snorted. Lu Xingchen smiled embarrassedly and said, I'm just saying. Old Qin, why take it seriously? Old Qin looked at Qin Feiyong and nodded, all right, we'll be the bait. You're in charge of eradicating the Zhuge family. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and Chang Shui appeared. Lu Xingchen's eyes lit up with greed. Qin Feiyong handed Chang Shui to old Qin and said telepathically, be careful of Lu Xingchen. He's been coveting Chang Shui for a long time. Also, this is the last time I'll trust you. Please don't disappoint me again. Old Qin didn't say anything. He looked deeply at Qin Feiyong and reached out to grab Chang Shui. Seeing that Chang Shui had fallen into old Qin's hands, Lu Xingchen felt very depressed. Be careful. Go. Qin Feiyong reminded them and waved his hand. Phew. Old Qin let out a long breath. He put away Chang Shui and opened a portal. He exchanged glances with Lu Xingchen, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He turned around and rushed into the portal. Qin Feiyong immediately took out his image crystal. Buzz. Yin Wei's shadow appeared. Qin Feiyong said, go to the Imperial Preceptor's side and stay there. Lu Xingchen and old Qin will find trouble with the Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Hong. After the Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Hong leave, immediately send me a message. After that, he briefly explained the plan to Yin Wei. Okay. Yin Wei nodded, turned off the image crystal, then opened a portal and descended in front of a lake. This was Emperor Hong's residence. By the lake, the Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Hong sat opposite each other. Yin Wei said respectfully, greetings, Emperor Hong, Imperial Preceptor. The two nodded. The Imperial Preceptor asked, has His Majesty Hao Tian's mood stabilized? I can't see it. Yin Wei shook his head. Why can't you see it? The Imperial Preceptor was suspicious. Yin Wei said, since returning to the palace, His Majesty Hao Tian has been sitting on the dragon throne without saying a word. This lowly one's eyes are dull, and I really can't see anything. Sigh. It's really hard for him to lose his father and mother at such a young age. Emperor Hong sighed. Yes. In the face of such a blow, even an adult wouldn't be able to bear it, let alone someone so young. Forget it, let's not talk about it. After all, as an emperor, sooner or later, he will face these problems. Now let's talk about Lu Xingchen and those 10 fake gods. The identity of these people must be investigated clearly, the Imperial Preceptor said. His eyes filled with killing intent. Emperor Hong said, Lu Xingchen's problem, this old man has thought about it carefully. There is only one explanation for his situation. What? The Imperial Preceptor was surprised. Possession. Emperor Hong said word by word, his old eyes flashing. Possession? The Imperial Preceptor's eyes trembled. Possession, only a war god can do it. If Emperor Hong's guess is true, then in Lu Xingchen's body, wouldn't there be a war god's soul hidden? Emperor Hong said, as for those 10 fake gods, this old man can't see through them. Yin Wei asked carefully, could it be the Lu family? Lu family? The Imperial Preceptor's brows raised, looking at Emperor Hong and said, it seems that only the Lu family has this ability. This old man also thought about the Lu family. But if they are really from the Lu family, then when facing Qin Feiyong, they shouldn't be so respectful. However, you all also heard that they address Qin Feiyong as young master. From this, it can be seen that their identity is Qin Feiyong's subordinates. Emperor Hong said. The Imperial Preceptor nodded and said, that's right, the Lu family's people are all Qin Feiyong's relatives. Calling him young master is not too likely. Yin Wei said again. Then could it be people from Forgotten Continent? Forgotten Continent. Emperor Hong and the Imperial Preceptor looked at each other. Don't say. There really was this possibility. After all these years, Qin Feiyang had always been in Forgotten Continent. And Forgotten Continent was also a place where powerhouses were as common as clouds. Possession 10 false gods, Emperor Hong muttered. Just who was hiding in Lu Xingqian's body? And just what were the identities of those 10 false gods? Suddenly, Emperor Hong looked at the Imperial Preceptor and said, Imperial Preceptor, why don't you go to Forgotten Continent to investigate? The moment the Imperial Preceptor heard this, a trace of dread crawled up in his eyes. That Snow Python's methods were still vivid in his mind even now. Boom! Right at this moment. At a certain time in the Imperial Palace, an earth-shaking loud explosion sounded out. And the Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Hong were startled, hurriedly rushing up to the sky, looking towards the sky above the Imperial Palace. What happened? Yen Wei's gaze flashed, also hurriedly following up, a look of bewilderment on his face. Emperor Hong said in a deep voice, the sound seems to be Jilai Little Prince's bedroom. Quickly go take a look. The Imperial Preceptor's expression changed, and he immediately opened the teleportation gate, following which the three people rushed in like lightning. Almost in the next instant, they descended above the little prince's bedroom, and at this moment what bedroom was there? It was a ruined dust billowing. Two lords, quickly look. It's Old Man Qin and Lu Xingqian. Yen Wei suddenly pointed to the distant void and roared. Emperor Hong and the Imperial Preceptor suddenly raised their heads to look, and immediately saw Old Man Qin and Lu Xingqian grabbing the little prince, fleeing out of the city. Still dare to come back and cause trouble, simply don't know life from death. The two people's hair fluttered in anger. A monstrous killing intent erupted from their bodies, unleashing their speed, chasing after Old Man Qin and Lu Xingqian. What? They actually kidnapped His Majesty the White Sky? The two of them really aren't afraid of death. It must be Qin Feiyang, that bastard, who ordered it. Looks like Emperor Hong was right. This bastard has always been thinking about the throne. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let Old Man Qin and Lu Xingqian come and kidnap His Majesty the White Sky. I don't know what this Old Man Qin is thinking. In the past, he was highly respected and revered by the world. But now, he actually ruined his reputation for a deranged bastard. The people in the major cities below raised their heads to look at Old Man Qin and Lu Xingqian. Their eyes filled with disgust. There were also people discussing in the Imperial Palace. When Yen Wei heard these words, he felt very uncomfortable in his heart. Wasn't Qin Feiyang doing this to protect Great Qin's rivers and mountains and its people? But these people actually scolded Qin Feiyang like this. It was really too much. But he ignored it, found a place where there was no one, and sent a message to Qin Feiyang. Buzz! Qin Feiyang's image appeared. Yen Wei said, the Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Hong have been lured away. Very good. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. Yen Wei said again, oh right, if there's a chance you can go and meet Marquis Xiao, because according to my observation, this person is a reasonable person. Perhaps he will be useful to us in the future. Marquis Xiao. Qin Feiyang murmured and nodded. All right. Of course he knew this person, but they didn't have much interaction before. With that, Qin Feiyang turned off the image crystal, killing intent surging out of his eyes, and shouted, everyone prepare for battle. Inside the ancient castle. Chapter 1389. Zhuge Mansion. Because of the Imperial Grandmaster's secret care, coupled with Zhuge Mingyang's monstrous talent, the current Zhuge family could be said to be like the sun in the sky. Among the 100 great marquis, Zhuge Wuhou was already firmly seated on the throne of number 1. At this moment, Zhuge family's meeting hall, Zhuge Wuhou, Zhuge Nangong, and Zhuge Nanhua sat upright at the table. Below, a guard commander stood respectfully and reported to the three of them about Elder Qin and Lu Xingqian kidnapping the little prince. After listening, Zhuge Wuhou's face was terrifyingly gloomy. Zhuge Nanhua looked at Zhuge Wuhou and waved to the guard commander. You can leave first. If there's any news, inform us immediately. Yes, the guard commander respectfully replied, then turned around and left in large strides. Zhuge Nanhua waved his hand again, and the door closed with a bang. He then looked at Zhuge Wuhou and comforted him. Xiao Xian, you don't have to worry. With the ancestor and Emperor Hong here, Elder Qin and Lu Xingchen wouldn't dare to harm Haotian. Elder Qin and Lu Xingchen wouldn't dare. But what about Qin Feiyang? These two people came to kidnap Haotian. It must be Qin Feiyang who planned this behind the scenes. Don't you understand Qin Feiyang? In this world, there is nothing he doesn't dare to do. Although Haotian is only a puppet in the hands of Ancestor Yun, he is still my flesh and blood, a descendant of my Zhuge family, Zhuge Wuhou said in grief and indignation. Hearing the latter half of his words, Zhuge Nanhua's expression changed, and he hurriedly made a shushing gesture and said, "Be careful of the walls having ears." Zhuge Nangong also looked around vigilantly, looked at Zhuge Wuhou, and said in a low voice, "In the future, you are not allowed to say such things again." What are you afraid of? Although the great Qin is still surnamed Qin, the control is already in the hands of my Zhuge family. So what if someone hears it? Zhuge Wuhou coldly snorted. Shut up. Zhuge Nanhua shouted coldly, you can be arrogant, but don't forget your limits. The great Qin Empire is not as simple as you think. That's right. Let's not talk about the fake gods in the back mountain of the imperial palace. Let's focus on the Lu family. Even though the old ancestor has something on the Lu clan, if the Lu clan finds out that the little prince is a descendant of our Zhuge clan, they will definitely not let this matter rest. The Lu family's strength is unfathomable. Even now we still don't know how strong they are. If we really provoke them, it won't do us any good, Zhuge Nangong said with a solemn expression on his face. Hearing their words, Zhuge Wuhou quivered and finally calmed down. So you all thought that the little prince was a descendant of the Zhuge family. But at this moment, a cold voice suddenly resounded in the hall. Who? Zhuge Wuhou and the other two turned pale with fright. There was actually someone hiding here. Wait a minute. This voice, it seemed to be Qin Feiyang. Damn it. How could it be him? Why is he here? The next moment, Qin Feiyang appeared in the air. The moment they saw Qin Feiyang appear, a trace of fear involuntarily crawled onto their faces. How did you get in? What did you mean by that sentence just now? Zhuge Wuhou said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, I have the invisibility technique and 2 spatial divine objects. If I want to enter your Zhuge family, wouldn't it be easy? As for that sentence. At this point, Qin Feiyang laughed in ridicule and asked, could it be that you have never doubted the identity of the little prince? Is there a problem with his identity? Zhuge Wuhou said in a deep voice. Seems that I have to make it clearer. I already know about you and that woman. I also know that the first prince is the illegitimate son of the two of you. And it is precisely because of your relationship with that woman that you have taken it for granted that the little prince is also your son all these years. But that's not the case. Qin Feiyang said. This? Zhuge Wuhou was stunned. In the past I was the same as you. I thought that the little prince should be the same as the first prince, the illegitimate son of you and that woman. I even wanted to kill him. But to be on the safe side I verified his identity. While the emperor and the little prince were not paying attention, I took their blood and put it in the water. Guess what the result was? Qin Feiyang said playfully. Don't keep me in suspense, hurry up and say it. Zhuge Wuhou growled. Is there a need to say that? The little prince has nothing to do with you at all. He is the son of the emperor and the empress. It is also because of this that I did not kill him and even helped him ascend to the throne. Qin Feiyang laughed. How could this be? Zhuge Wuhou muttered, his face filled with disbelief. Zhuge Nanhua anxiously said, Xiao Xian, he is trying to sow discord, don't be fooled by him. Zhuge Wuhou's real name was Zhuge Xiao Xian. Qin Feiyang laughed faintly. At this time do I still need to lie to you? Impossible. That woman clearly told me that the little prince is my own flesh and blood. Zhuge Wuhou shook his head crazily, as if he was about to collapse. Qin Feiyang was slightly startled. The little prince was born of that woman, so she should know whose child he was. But why did she lie to Zhuge Wuhou? Thinking about it carefully, Qin Feiyang revealed a look of realization. Then, Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at Zhuge Wuhou, and laughed. That woman is very smart. She knows that once you find out that the little prince is not your son, you and the imperial tutor will definitely think of ways to kill the little prince. After all, she is a mother and loves her son dearly. But this is only secondary. She is even more afraid of angering you. Because she understands the imperial tutor's personality and methods, so in order to protect herself, she lied that the little prince is your son. Of course, we can't rule out another possibility. She has her own ambitions and doesn't want to be controlled and manipulated by you. Qin Feiyang laughed. Damned woman. Zhuge Wuhou clenched his fists tightly, his old eyes bloodshot. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, she indeed deserves to die, otherwise I wouldn't have killed her. Xiao Xian, calm down, don't be fooled. Whether or not the little prince is your flesh and blood, we will know after Ancestor Yun rescues him, Zhuge Nanhua thought. He had always thought that Qin Feiyang was trying to sow discord. That's right. I haven't even personally verified it, why would I be angry? Zhuge Wuhou suddenly came to a realization, looked at Qin Feiyang and said in a deep voice, did you come to my Zhuge family just to tell us this? Of course not. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Then why? Zhuge Wuhou raised his eyebrows. Is there a need to ask? Qin Feiyang looked at Zhuge Wuhou strangely and laughed. The little prince has just ascended to the throne, and I came to your Zhuge family, do you think it would be a good thing? Hearing this, the three of them trembled. Alright, I'll tell you guys clearly. The reason why I asked Old Man Qin and Lu Xingchen to kidnap the little prince was purely to lure the imperial tutor and Emperor Hong away. Because if they are in the imperial city, they will hinder me from eradicating your Zhuge family. Qin Feiyang laughed. Boom! Hearing this, Zhuge Wuhou and the other two immediately blasted open the roof with surging emperor's might and rushed out like lightning. Qin Feiyang has come to invade. Elders, please come out and kill the enemy. In the next moment, Zhuge Wuhou's voice sounded in the sky above the Zhuge mansion. What? Qin Feiyang is here. This demon is vicious and merciless. He kills without batting an eye. Everyone run. The Zhuge family was instantly in chaos. Boom! At the same time, a terrifying aura erupted from the ground in the center of the mansion. Following closely, 10 figures rushed out from the ground. There were men and women among the 10, and they all looked rather old. The aura they emitted was that of a 9-star war emperor. Where's Qin Feiyang? The 10 of them flew to the side of Zhuge Wuhou and the other two, and asked with a murderous aura. He's in the main hall. Zhuge Wuhou pointed to the broken meeting hall below. One of them said in a deep voice, we'll go and pin him down. You inform Ancestor Yun immediately. All right. Zhuge Wuhou nodded. It's too late. Qin Feiyang's calm voice sounded from the main hall. Boom! Before he could finish, waves of shocking emperor's might and ferocious beasts rushed out from the main hall. The broken meeting hall was instantly reduced to ashes. Zhuge Wuhou and the others immediately saw that in the dust, there were 3 ferocious beasts and a group of 9-star war emperor. That's right. They were Lei Bao, Seal Seahorse, Wang Yangfeng and the others. Qin Feiyang raised his head and glanced at Zhuge Wuhou and the others, and said word by word, I want the entire Zhuge family to die, not a single blade of grass to grow, not an inch of land to be left. Kill! Lei Bao and the other two, Wang Yangfeng and the others, let out a long roar in unison. Swoosh! Lei Bao took the lead. The power of thunder all over his body was like a raging wave, rolling and roaring. One of the old women roared, everyone, don't be afraid. They are only 9-star war emperor. But before she could finish speaking, Lei Bao laughed and waved his thick claws. The power of thunder covered the sky and covered the earth. The old woman screamed and died on the spot. What? So strong. Zhuge Wuhou and the others' expressions changed. Boom! At this moment, the seahorse, the leopard, Wang Yangfeng, and the others unleashed their auras too. This, Zhuge Wuhou and the others were instantly petrified. The aura that these people and ferocious beasts released was actually all at the peak of the 9-star war emperor realm. How is this possible? The last time they came, they were only ordinary 9-star war emperor and 9-star emperor beast? The group of people were filled with disbelief. How long had it been? And they had all stepped into the peak realm. Even if they had opened all the doors of potential, it was impossible to do so. Just as the group of people were distracted, another old man died tragically under Lei Bao's claws. Seahorse, Seal, Wang Yangfeng and the others had already arrived in front of Zhuge Wuhou and the others. Quickly inform Ancestor Yun. Zhuge Wuhou suddenly came back to his senses and roared. At the same time, without hesitation, he activated his battle soul and evolved his divine art. A mighty divine power surged out. Zhuge Nanhua and the others were the same. In short, at this moment they did not dare to hold back. Battle soul, divine art.